everyone, and welcome back to another episode here at the Damage Report. Wednesdays on the Damage Report are Big News Wednesdays. Today is Thursday. I don't know if it's like son of Big News Wednesday. I don't know if it's the return of big news, but Thursday is apparently gonna be a pretty big one because we got a lot to talk about. The Supreme Court decided to make this morning really exciting with a bunch of big decisions, and that's just the beginning. Through the course of this hour, we're gonna be talking about a ton. Joe Manchin, infrastructure. We're gonna be talking about the voting bill, the border walls coming back, but who's actually responsible for it? There's so much. And then Tucker Carlson's possible worst guest ever. And along the way, you know who we're gonna be joined by? The ever awesome Viviana Vigil. How's it going, Viviana?
Hi, John. Thanks for having me. Hello to all your amazing Dragon Squad out there.
Thank you. It is always awesome to have you here. Hopefully we've put together a rundown. News has put together a rundown of stuff that you're gonna be interested in, but I'm very curious to see what you have to say about a lot of this.
Never a dull moment.
No, it is not. Well, thank you everyone for being here, regardless of what platform you're on. If you could do us a quick favor and hit the like button, share the stream so that people know we're active, that would be great. If you want to send out a tweet, I just did. I just retweeted the Damage Report's pre-show announcement that the show is going live. That's a great habit to develop. Maybe look into it. You might like it. And along the way, as we go through all these stories, if you want to send us any comments, tweets, super chats, stuff like that you have, feel free and we'll respond as we go. Through the course of this hour, I'm gonna let you know about a few things that are happening at the network, little programming notes. But one I wanna let you know a couple times is our show now goes 90 minutes if you haven't been watching for a while. So that's awesome, supersized show. But even better is that it leads directly into Dr. Rashad Ritchie's new show, Indisputable, which is available at youtube.com/indisputable_TYT. People are loving the show so far. It's in an 8-week run. We're in the second week. He's been having amazing guests. Now, sometimes he's not able to get the best guests. Like today, there's this joker, John Iadarola, that's gonna be his co-host. That's not that exciting. But generally, I mean, he's getting senators, he's getting activists. Killer Mike was on there, Senator John Ossoff was on there. So definitely stay tuned each day for that. And starting today, it's gonna be great. Now, with all that out of the way, Viviana, you ready to do this?
Let's go.
Okay, let's do it. This morning, the Supreme Court was on a tear with decisions, quite a few. We're gonna focus on a few here today on the Damage Report, starting with them once again upholding the Affordable Care Act. The attempt by the Republicans to strike down the entirety of the ACA was rejected. They dismissed this challenge on Thursday. It was argued back in November, but it takes quite a while for the decisions to be put together. It's going to leave the law intact and save healthcare coverage for millions of Americans, but also leaving a bunch of people without insurance. Let's just bear that in mind. Anyway, the justices turned away a challenge from Republican-led states and the former Trump administration, which urged the justices to block the entire law. Now, this is not the first time that they've tried to take down the law, but this might be the most pathetic attempt because there was effectively no chance that this could actually work. And we're gonna describe why that is. So the case is California versus Texas. It was brought by Republican officials who said that the mandate requiring health insurance coverage became unconstitutional after Congress back in 2017 eliminated the penalty for failing to obtain coverage because the mandate could no longer be justified as a tax. So previously, if you hadn't had health insurance, you would have to pay a penalty. In 2017, they made the penalty $0. So effectively, it wasn't a penalty. Now, previously, some people thought that the constitutionality of the mandate was allowed because there was taxation involved. That fee was effectively a form of tax. So if that goes away, then theoretically you no longer have that constitutional underpinning to it. And therefore the whole thing can be destroyed. No, that doesn't make any sense. Those leaps are insane, but they really went all the way to the Supreme Court with that being a fairly generous description of their legal case. And it was rejected, not unanimously, but close. The justices said that the challengers of the 2010 ACA law did not have the legal right to bring the case, and how could they? There's no injury. If you're not paying a tax, you can't say that the lack of a tax is hurting you. So anyway, it was a 7-2 decision. Justices Samuel Alito and Neil Gorsuch dissented, but the others, including multiple justices that were put there by Trump, did effectively vote to keep the ACA intact. So Viviana, that's not necessarily what I would have expected. What did you think about this?
I mean, I'm glad that we're still keeping Obamacare in remnants alive. It's funny to me, it's like, I was overcharged, but you weren't charged anything, but I was overcharged. That's what they're yelling right now. I was really happy when the Affordable Care Act came into being, mostly because of a lot of the rights women got and women's health got, especially birth control being covered, et cetera. I mean, I was already, in my early 30s when that happened, and for all of my 20s, I was paying for a lot of things that women should not have to pay. So for me, I'm happy. I'm a little bit surprised that it's held on for this long, because it's really been attacked since it came to be. But I think until they have a better plan, this is what we got. The rest of the United States.
That is true. And so this is the third time that the Supreme Court has had the opportunity to take out the entirety of the ACA and hasn't. Now, bear in mind, they've managed to get through these 3 decisions, well, without ever once really judging like the substance of the ACA, whether they believe it's fundamentally constitutional or whatever. They keep finding these ways to effectively say that the people bringing the case don't have standing. And that's not out of the norm for the Supreme Court necessarily, but it leaves just enough opening for some Republicans to think, well, surely the next time we'll be able to get rid of it. And maybe they'll be right. Although I do have to say the fact that like Amy Coney Barrett and Clarence Thomas and Kavanaugh didn't take this opportunity is certainly interesting. It's possible that they thought they couldn't quite get the majority, so why be on the record for trying to destroy? I don't know. It's complicated, but I'm at least glad that it is still in it's maintaining, because people do rely on it. Now, that's not to say that this is the be all end all, it's the best thing ever. We constantly talk about the need to go way farther, and thankfully, some politicians are making sure that people know that. Bernie Sanders tweeted in response to this, the court's decision to not overturn the ACA and throw 31 million Americans off their healthcare is welcome, but it's not enough. Healthcare is a human right, not a privilege. We must join other major countries in guaranteeing healthcare for all and pass Medicare for all. And so, the ACA sucks in a lot of ways, but it's better than what we had before.
Absolutely, but it is disconcerting that we have so many people who are considered liberals fighting so hard on behalf of the insurance companies continue making their money. We can't have, Medicare for all, because then they're not going to make the money that they're making. But perhaps people like Amy Coney Barrett are sort of picking their battles, because if you keep the ACA intact, when you start questioning what should be covered, like abortion, then you have a better argument, to say no, it isn't covered. So she might just be wading in the water and kind of seeing what she can get away with now, deciding, if you do get rid of it, then it's an easier argument, and then people come. If you get rid of it and there's no money federally supporting this, then there's really not an argument to ban abortions if they're not federally funded. It gets complicated, but really at the end of the day, we're just making sure that people are still making money off of deaths. And sickness and illness. I mean, it's pretty sad.
Yeah. I want to throw one additional thing out there, not directly related to this, but we are talking about, the future of our healthcare system. And I saw, take this with a massive grain of salt, but one of the updates in the ongoing infrastructure back and forth negotiations, all that stuff. Jeff Stein of the Washington Post tweeted a new Schumer-Sanders reconciliation package being prepped by Dems, expected to include Medicare to 60. So basically expanding it so that people 60 and older rather than 65 and older could be incorporated under Medicare. Expansion of Medicare to cover dental, vision, and hearing, which is a big part of the expansion of Medicare for all that Sanders has been pushing for. And so that's like a half a decade better, but it's still, it's not Medicare for all. But I don't know.
Well, we
Maybe
need to get
if you
to
do 5 years now, you can do 10 later. I don't know.
What's really sad, John, and I don't know if a lot of people know this, or if you have any elderly people in your family that are, beneficiaries of Medicare. Even if you've had private insurance, like my father, for instance, he has had incredible insurance his whole life. He's, been an educator and he's got some good coverage. But once you reach a certain age, your insurance relies on Medicare. They need to pay for everything for you. And then if they don't cover something, then perhaps your own private insurance will. So it's this weird catch-22 with Medicare and private insurance. It's like, we want you to have private insurance, but when you're older, it won't even matter unless you make so much money that you can pay. I mean, this is like long-term benefits, long-term care. It's not covered. I mean, we really need to look at the elderly population. We're living longer these days. 60 years old, that's young. That's like, you're not even expanding it. My grandmother's 95. So what are we gonna do when our population continues to age? We do not have the coverage or the support to make people comfortable and live in dignity. And it is ruining families. People are taking care of their elderly patients and elderly parents and grandparents. And it's a big financial burden that Medicare doesn't even cover. And your private insurance just backs away and says, well, whatever they cover is what we cover. So it's a real skewed system, and we do need to expand it. That's why it needs to be Medicare for all. It really balances out everything for everyone, and then we can cover a lot more stuff for our elderly, citizens.
Yeah, you're right. Well, look, I'm curious what people think about this potential reconciliation bill. Do you think they're gonna have an expansion of Medicare in it? Whether, in terms of what it covers, which is great, or expanding it to more Americans, feel free to let us know. But we've got another case to talk about. Let's do that now. The Supreme Court once again getting involved. The Supreme Court once again getting involved in this debate over, the role of religion in America, what exemption religions have in terms of what they're allowed to do and still receive money from the government in a variety of forms. So we have that now, and it has to do with this foster care agency. It's a Catholic foster care agency, and whether they're allowed to ban basically who they're working with. So the Supreme Court said that Philadelphia violated the First Amendment when it froze a contract with a Catholic foster care agency that refused to work with same-sex couples as potential foster parents because the agency believes that marriage should be between a man and a woman. So this is the sort of exemption that we've seen in other cases. But they are once again wading into those waters. And so it was a unanimous ruling, by the way. The liberals, the conservatives all believe that Philadelphia was in the wrong for taking away this contract. Let's give you a little bit more details about it. The case began back in 2018 when the city learned from a Philadelphia Inquirer reporter that 2 of the 30 different agencies that had previously contracted with to provide foster care services, Catholic Social Services, part of the Archdiocese of Philadelphia, and Beth Christian Services had policies against certifying married same-sex couples as foster parents, citing religious objections to gay marriage. So one of the 2, Bethany Christian Services, changed its rule and started working with these couples, but the other, Catholic Social Services, didn't. And they said they're not gonna change that. In response to the freeze, they lost the business from the city. The foster care agency and a group of foster parents filed suit arguing the move violated their First Amendment rights. Now, the 3rd US Circuit Court of Appeals ruled in favor of the city and found that it had a non-discrimination policy that it was adjudicating in a neutral fashion. But then it was kicked up to the Supreme Court, and literally all of them believe that that was not the case. Viviana, thoughts?
It's absolutely disgusting. This is not a business, these are children's lives. And as you know, John, I used to work as a social worker, and believe it or not, even in Los Angeles County, at one point, we did not allow same-sex couples to foster or adopt, it's called foster adopt. It's absolutely horrendous. We have so many children in this country that are in need of homes, healthy, loving, supportive parents, and to sit on the laurels of religion to say that these children should not have families that can love and support and give them a lifetime of a family is absolutely disgusting. I cannot understand how you would even call yourself a Christian when you would rather children suffer in orphanages, in group homes, end up on the streets with nobody at all, for you to even say that it is wrong. I don't care what you believe. These are children who need help. What would Jesus do? Ask yourself that. And he certainly would not close the door on children. If these are good people who pass background checks, who are willing to take children into their homes, let them do it. These kids need it. It's absolutely disgusting and vile that it is even considered in 2021. It upsets me every single time I read a story like this. This has happened all over the country, and it really takes a lot of support from the community. It just to talk about it being a business, like, oh, we have a contract, we have this. It's disgusting. You should be providing a service to your community. That is why you're a tax exempt institution. To be sitting there thinking we're losing money because we don't get the contract, because we don't want them to be same-sex couples, we don't want to confuse them. Guess what? There are kind of normal, typical cis couples who have toxic homes. who don't have healthy relationships. Are you worried about them? Let's look at that. No, you're just gonna, I've had cases where children were placed in homes and they ended up getting abused by male-female couples. So it has nothing to do with their sexual identity, their gender, none of that. This is a really disgusting way to sort of flex your homophobia and your transphobia or whatever phobias you have out there, and it needs to be eradicated. It's disgusting to me, and it's hurting children at the end of the day.
It is. Yeah, if it's making it harder to place them, that is totally true. Now, look, it technically, in terms of this, I'm not a legal expert, I'm certainly not an expert on SCOTUS and how they adjudicate laws. We have Adrienne Lawrence on quite often because she is a legal expert. She says that the way the non-discrimination regulation is written by Philly is flawed in some fairly obvious ways. She says it's basically on them to fix it. I question whether the fix, I don't know what they could say that would stop the Supreme Court from saying, well, it's their religious right, they can do what they want. I don't know, maybe there is something, and hopefully we can have Adrienne
well, you know what I say?
Scholar on to talk about it. But
I say if that's the case, then guess what? Religious organizations don't get to have, companies. I'll call them companies. Contracts. Then you don't get to work with the foster care system.
Oh, Viviana, I'm totally with you. I'm just describing her thing about the legal case. None of this
they shouldn't be at all.
Any sense to me.
No, I know you agree.
They say it's my religious belief that these couples can't be together, so I am not gonna place a kid with you. Let me ask you a serious question. What makes it their sincere religious belief? Is it a spectrum where it's like more or less sincere? So if that church says I'm not gonna do that, what if another says, oh no, this couple's interracial, I'm not gonna place a kid with them. That's my sincere religious belief. Like there is literally no difference between those two things, except that we say one is sincere and another, by virtue of the fact that we find it to be abhorrent, isn't sincere anymore. I got news for you. There are some racist, sincerely racist people in this country, but we don't care about the sincerity because it's awful BS. And we should apply that same standard to this too. It's not on us to just let kids languish in these facilities for God knows how long until various religions get their act together on it. It's totally just whatever you want is your belief.
Didn't the new Pope say something about homosexuality recently? Like it was okay. Like I thought we were past this.
The Pope unfortunately has gone so back and forth on a number of different things. Sometimes he puts out these statements that are.
Here's their argument, though, John. These Christian arguments that same-sex couples shouldn't raise children. That I guess they're afraid that they're going to raise gay children. When in fact, how many male-female couples have produced gay children? I mean, it really has nothing to do with the sexual identity of your family. I mean, it's a personal thing. So I just think, fine, you want to say that it's your religious objection, then guess what? You don't get to be in this business. You don't get to help foster kids. Pack them sack lunches and let other organizations take care of them in a fair and balanced way so we can get these kids homes and families. It's just disgusting. I'll talk to anybody all day about this. You're wrong. If you believe that because of your religious beliefs that children shouldn't have homes because you don't like the home they're in, then I hope you're taking all those kids in, and you're not. I know that for a fact.
Yeah, that's a great point. Well, there's a lot of other news that we do have to get to. So we're gonna take our first break. We come back. Could there possibly still be some sort of voting rights legislation? Well, President Manchin apparently has his demands in order. We're gonna evaluate them after this. Welcome back, everyone. Let me just, this is behind the scenes info. It is like weirdly hot in the studio right now. And unfortunately, we don't have any actual breaks. So I can't do anything about it. I literally can't go change the temperature because we don't take real breaks. Anyway, so I'm just gonna become increasingly moist in the face as this hour and a half goes through. Anyway, thank you everybody who's sending in messages. I wanna give some shout outs, including two from our members' comments. Dawn Martin says, help, stuck in Florida as a progressive. Sorry about that situation, that can be rough. There's certainly a lot of progressives in Florida, but yeah, your state government needs to get its act together. Eric the Red said, Ben Dixon was on Indisputable yesterday and it was great. I guess I'll have to stick around for more John today, and the garden weeds rejoice. Eric, throw it up on mobile. You can weed and watch Indisputable at the same time, I guess. Thank you once again to Crypto Mojito for upgrading your membership to tier 2. I think we talked about that in the pre-show, but thank you as always. We appreciate all of our members. And we love the experience we've had over the past 6 months or so with the YouTube membership program, putting together the extra content and all that. Katrina Simpson, welcome to tier 1 membership, getting access to all of our emojis, including, I know that you have access to the Viviana emoji because I saw a ton of it over the course of the last segment. So that's awesome. T Underhill says, thank you for reading this super chat, John. Like this video. Appreciate it, T, both for the super chat and for reminding people that likes are apparently really helpful. So if you could do that, that'd be great. Thank you, everyone. Okay, Non-Human Humanist says, US people, please don't be fearful. Other countries have more worker protection, higher wages, parental leave, healthcare, etc. They still also have a great economy. Have you been to Western Europe? You are obviously 100% right. We have made the comparison to the sort of social system, social safety net in a lot of these countries. It just doesn't matter to them. They don't care. They'll occasionally reference like how great Norway is when they clearly are talking about like racial composition, but they don't care about the relationship between the government and the economy in these, and the fact that these countries are often filled with like just so much happier on average, less stressed because they don't treat their workers like inconvenient machines. Anyway, Kenny from Philly sent in a super chat saying, for behind the scenes TDR team and TDR fabulous moderators, yes, thank you to the team and to the moderators. I can't even imagine how difficult it is on the internet being a moderator. But we thankfully have on both Twitch and YouTube an amazing community. And that is thanks, in large part to the actual people who take part, because they're good people, but to the moderators as well. Thank you for making sure that we have a community that people actually want to be a part of. Okay, there were definitely comments about that last story with Gabby on YouTube saying we were foster parents and we were not allowed to foster kids of a different race. Disgusting. Really? Is that an agency thing? That seems crazy. Okay, let's see. Moondragon says, totally agree, John and Viv, SCOTUS decision doesn't pass the smell test. Again, I'm not the expert, but I hate what they're allowing to continue. Fonsui says, in regards to the ACA portion, it's sad that we've been gaslit into loving the ACA, which is not what Obama wanted to begin with, and still makes the medical industry ass loads of corrupt cash. Well, look, to be clear, Fonsui, while I'm sure some people literally love it, I don't think Viviana and I would describe it as loving it. But I also remember what the system was like before that. I mean, I watched Sicko and all that, like it was really rough. So it's something, it's not great. I don't love it and it needs to be replaced and hopefully we can have that. But while we're waiting for that, yeah, it's good for them to not destroy that and throw off over 30 million people. Anyway, lots more news to get to after this. Okay, we've been wondering, one of the big pieces of legislation is going to be some form of voting rights legislation. Viviana, are you excited to find out what we might end up getting?
Yeah, it's
I hope it's good. I hope it's good. I mean, it's not like super high stakes, it's only democracy, but let's see what we've got. Okay. Joe Manchin, as of right now, is the only Senate Democrat that is not supporting the For the People Act. Now, others are effectively opposed to it because they allow the filibuster to continue, which, so long as it's there, means we won't get it. But Joe Manchin goes beyond that. He's not only supporting the filibuster, he literally doesn't support the bill. He supports the John Lewis Voting Act, which also Republicans will filibuster and don't support, even though he thinks that's some sort of bipartisan thing. But anyway, what is he potentially willing to negotiate on? To put together some sort of bill that will combine the interests of two different parties. One is the American people who elected a president and a Senate and some dude from West Virginia. Well, here is what we might end up getting. We have this three-page memo being circulated by his office last week, which indicates his willingness to support some key provisions of the For the People Act, including provisions mandating at least 2 weeks of early voting and measures meant to eliminate partisan gerrymandering of congressional districts. So let's start off there with what he's okay with, because that is, it's impossible to exaggerate how not the entirety of the For the People Act that actually is. But those are two good things. Early voting is good, and getting rid of partisan gerrymandering would be, it would be so big that I honestly don't know what the actual ramifications of that would be for the composition and representation in government. So those two things, 2 weeks of early voting, getting rid of gerrymandering. Viviana, what do you think about those? If we got those, would you be satisfied?
That's a start, but I mean, you haven't gotten to the voter ID issue, and that's the biggest one for me.
You want the negatives? Okay, let's throw the negatives in there too.
Well, because it's such a big negative, it kind of like it's not even gonna make a difference. I mean, if you stop people from voting, then the gerrymandering doesn't really even matter.
Yeah, that's not a bad point. Okay, let's throw out the negatives. Manchin's memo also sketches out several provisions that have historically been opposed by most Democrats, including backing an ID requirement for voters. So, by the way, let's throw in also the ability of local election officials to purge voter rolls using other government records, which is a great way to take people off the voting rolls who should be on there. If you want to get rid of a community, generally black voters, that's a great way to do that. And so it's awesome that Joe Manchin is pushing for that. Now, the other one is the voter ID. And let's be very clear here. Voter ID is a Republican goal. And the Republicans were not able to get it federally, even when they had unified control of government. But now, with the Democrats having unified control, they might get it, thanks to Joe Manchin. Is that twisted? Like Trump and the Republicans, when they had the Senate and the House, they didn't pass some sort of federal voter ID law. But now, after multiple elections of the Democrats saying, no, we don't want that stuff, now finally it might be required to get some sort of bill passed, Viviana.
I more and more I feel like Joe Manchin is going to try to run for president. He is really pushing himself as I'm not saying he has a chance, but there really isn't somebody that is trying to sort of appease both sides as much as Joe Manchin. He's this ultra centrist Democrat, which I don't even know what that means. But he's really trying to work on both sides of the fence here, and it's not working for me. And I mean, you and I are much more progressive than most Democrats ever will be. But it's upsetting because this guy is really putting a wrench in the works, and it's going to be devastating for Americans and their right to vote. I was looking up some statistics from the ACLU, and it says millions of Americans, 11% of US citizens. More than 21 million Americans do not have a government issued photo. And every time voter ID laws are brought up, they really trump up, no pun intended, that people are out there trying to vote illegally when it's just not true. And so that's why I said like the gerrymandering, like if you're gonna control that, but you're gonna require voter ID, you're gonna eliminate that population anyway. Yeah. We live in a metropolis, so it is a little bit easier for us to access some of the documents that we need to get an ID. But even people who experience homelessness, here in Los Angeles, have trouble getting their birth certificates. You have to pay for that. All of these different things that you need to get your ID. People just shrug, well, you have to have a license anyway. Well, some IDs are considered okay and some aren't. Like you can't use a student ID, but you could use a utility bill. I mean, sometimes you rent a room and you don't have.
You can use your gun license, right?
You can use your gun license, absolutely, and you can bring a gun in there, but you can't. You can't just say this is my address and this is my name. And it's really for me that's the pinnacle here. If you start forcing voter ID laws, you're really gonna isolate a lot of Americans, and particularly rural, poor Americans.
Well, two quick things. One, I get what you're saying about voter ID. The one silver lining is that that stat that you said about people not having photo ID, at the very least, silver lining, that is evenly distributed across all demographic groups. It's not chosen as a thing because it clearly discriminates against certain types of people, not others. I'm being sarcastic. It obviously is not even. The other thing though is, here's a silver lining for you. So it's long been insane that you can use things like a hunting license or something. No, Mr. Unknown is literally preempting what I'm about to say. That you can use something like a hunting license as a voting license, but Texas, you dummies, you're taking away the need to have a license at all, which means you're gonna be taking away the need for them to have this thing they could use for voting. You fools, you saps. No, the joke is really on us because they're still gonna stop people from voting and they're gonna be better armed now. But anyway, the Joe Manchin stuff is terrible. This is what you should get under a Republican. And let's not even get into exactly the fact that, well, where's the public financing? He doesn't support it. Where's the increased disclosure for dark money campaign donations? He doesn't support that, so that's not in this. This is so narrow. Some of the provisions are good, yes.
It was 3 pages, John. It was a 3-page memo. It was a 3-page memo. He really thought this
one through. And the good stuff was this on the 3-page memo. Here's all the things 10 things I hate about voting rights. That's what I would title the movie about Manchin. But anyway, yeah, hopefully they will shoot this down. I don't know what in the end will come of this, but I don't want Manchin to be an important part of the process. I'm getting really sick of it.
I feel like I need to say that one quote from Blazing Saddles. Badges? We don't need no stinking badges.
Mm-hmm.
Because who gets asked for their ID? It's not the blonde, blue-eyed person that shows up. Oh, I forgot my ID, but this is my address. Sure, Susie, come on in. No, That's not the one.
That is true. That's true. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about Texas. Always fun. I know that was abrupt. I apologize to the director. There you go.
I was like, am I supposed to say something?
No, that's on me. Okay, so Donald Trump swore he was going to deliver a wall, big wall, great wall. The wall just got higher, and he did. He built some of it, but not nearly as much as he wanted to. Not nearly as much as some Southern Republican politicians wanted, including Governor Greg Abbott of Texas. So now he's taking it into his own hands. He announced yesterday that he was putting $250 million down on a state-led project to build hundreds of miles of border wall as part of a security plan he said was made necessary by the federal government's neglect of communities along the state's international river boundary with Mexico. And he hates that these communities were so neglected when it comes to wall. When it comes to them not having access to electricity, he's fine with that, totally cool, no reforms necessary to their energy grid or anything, but this he will deal with. By the way, puts down $250 million, which they just had lying around, I guess. He also told a podcast host that he was going to be soliciting donations from the public to fund a wall. And indeed, yesterday, the state opened a website on which Texans could make donations. So you can go to this website and throw away your hard-earned money so that they can build a wall.
You could buy another yacht for some guy who's gonna take, didn't the other guy use the money to buy a yacht?
Bannon, yes. No word yet on whether Greg Abbott.
He used a wheelchair, remember that guy?
I don't remember I know what you're talking about, but I don't remember the individual. Yeah, it was a massive grift, and I just hope, please, none of the people who were robbed in that first one don't donate to the second one.
They will.
Come on.
They will.
Fool me once, can't get fooled again, please. But anyway, it goes beyond just the money. Now, like the $250 million is annoying. The soliciting donations is sort of sad, and I really hope it doesn't work, but I'm worried that it will. But beyond that, they need the actual land. So they need land to put this on. And it turns out that the wall is going to be built on land owned by the state, but also areas that are provided by volunteers who surrender their land. So he wants your money. He also wants you to just give up your land to the state, which is totally a thing conservatives love doing. And so back under Trump, Trump actually had some opposition. Like the only time like conservative Texans had a problem with him, and in other states on the border too, was when he started to steal the land. He was using eminent domain to take land from farmers and people who live on the border to build it. And they didn't actually like that because obviously. And so this seems less designed to produce opposition. Like he's asking for it to be volunteered, but it seems like a pretty big issue. A lot of people are not gonna wanna give up their land. So how are you gonna have anything like a contiguous border wall when you're asking people to potentially cut off like their access to the river and just cut their land in half for it? It just doesn't make a lot of sense.
You'll never get that land back. And they've done a lot of journalists have gone down to the border and spoken to a lot of these landowners, and they are not for it. And they don't even think that they're particularly at risk. They know that there's some traffic coming through their property, but that's not really where the drama is happening. Really at these border ports of entry are really where there's more danger and because there's a lot more people congregated. I mean, these are really dangerous areas of the desert to cross. So you don't have this huge influx of people like they claim. So these border walls aren't really gonna do that much. Not to mention that's not the only way people are getting across. So it's a waste of money. It's a political ploy for a lot more, xenophobic, anti-immigrant sort of mentality that these people are pandering to. And like you mentioned earlier, like they have better things to worry about in Texas. I mean, it's about to get really hot over there. It probably is already really hot because it's Texas. And we saw what happened when it was freezing. So I really hope they don't have the same situation this summer. I was just listening to a story that people are already like really conserving their energy because they're afraid. Not to mention they're going to be charged even more because it's like supply and demand over there.
Yeah.
It's really upsetting because this is what they're focusing on. And we know why. It's just to kind of appease a lot of racist people. And it works.
By the way, I want to give credit to A4G production on Twitch who said Brian Colfage. That's the other individual who's been involved in the scam. And it is scam. Someone on YouTube was like, it's not a scam, protection. No, okay, maybe this time it's not a scam.
No.
Maybe Abbott actually intends to build the wall. He'll use the money to build the wall. But dude, like, I love you. They scammed those people. Colfage and Bannon took the money and bought yachts.
Yeah.
They had no intention of building a wall. It was just a way to steal money. Like, I'm trying to save you from grift, man.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you want to build a wall, then get it through the federal government like you've been trying. Get the money through there because everybody already pays their taxes. And if the United States wants to build a wall, then get it through the taxes that we've already paid. But that's not working, is it? No. How dare you ask private citizens for money like this? If they are in fact so bothered by the influx of immigrants coming across the border, then they are already paying. They're already dealing with it. So that's their payment right there. Don't ask these people for any money. And I feel bad for the people who are gonna literally buy into this because they're just buying someone a yacht.
Yeah, potentially, yeah. In addition to restarting the construction of the border wall in Texas, Governor Abbott has other components of his new border security plan. He's encouraging local law enforcement and state troopers to begin arresting and charging migrants with trespassing, vandalism, and other misdemeanors. He promised to build jail capacity in small communities, many of which can barely manage to handle the number of inmates they already have, much less the hundreds who cross the Rio Grande every day. A judge involved in this process says you don't put more resources into a policy that's failed us. Arresting people isn't going to solve the issue of people coming in the first place. All it does is delay the ultimate inevitability of release. You spend 6 months in jail, now what? We're back to where we were. Judge Richard Cortez, stop being reasonable. He's trying to fearmonger. He's not interested in your rational analysis of this. So anyway, Viviana, they want to start arresting more people. They're going to be getting them on whatever minor issues they can, and then just throwing them in prison in those prisons in Texas, which are so bad, so dangerous that they were recently profiled in John Oliver's show, which everyone should go watch.
I mean, the for-profit prison system is out of control in this country, so this is just another way to get those numbers up. Because there's a real fight right now nationally to start, cut the funding for for-profit prisons. But this is not anything new. The United States has been doing this on and off again for hundreds of years, really. And of course, it's discriminatory. You're not gonna have, again, blonde hair, blue-eyed Susie getting pulled over and asked for her ID or her papers. And then back to that, we don't need to show no stinking badges. Like, who's going to be targeted? Somebody go rent Born in East LA. It's a great movie. It really talks about how an American citizen can be totally targeted. And he was taken to Mexico. He didn't even speak Spanish. It's a hilarious movie with Cheech Marin. He's a great actor, Cheech and Chong. He goes beyond the stoner in this one. He's really funny. But this is something that we've done and over and over and over again, and it's a waste of resources. It's a waste of money. Not to mention it's criminalizing people who aren't necessarily criminals, other than they crossed an imaginary border that we've created that has always been in flux. I mean, my own family has roots in the Southwest, and my family has never immigrated to the United States, but we are of Mexican descent. But because we've always been right on the border, we've never we're not Mexican, we're not American. Nobody really knows what the heck we are. And people ask, well, where are you from? Well, we're from here. But where's your family from? Well, they're from here too. Well, you're Mexican, but we're in Mexico. What, Texas? I mean, that's where we're from, And this has been going on for hundreds of years. It's gonna be something that we're eventually gonna have to come to terms with, that we need to figure out a way to really solve our immigration problem, because there is a problem. We have a lot of people coming to this country because we've disrupted their countries, and climate issues are bringing people to this country, all kinds of reasons. So there's a lot of solutions, and this is not one.
Yeah.
Tried and true. We already saw that it didn't work.
I agree. But it's not a solution to the actual problem they say they want to solve, but it is a solution to the problem of getting their base to be excited about them.
Yeah.
No, he's just trying to be Trump. That's all it is. I don't know. Is he going to be running for president?
They're all going to try.
I'm sure he's thinking about it. Okay, well, that's it for that. We have coming up after this break a fascinating study. When someone like Ilhan Omar or someone like Marjorie Greene says something, what do people think about it? Do they think that it's offensive? Turns out it's super important whether they know who said it or not. We're going to show you the results of that after this. Okay, so very briefly, I saw a comment on Twitch for Viviana saying that they hadn't known that you were a social worker. So Viviana, you want to do me a favor for 20 seconds as I turn down the heat, because it is crazy in here. Tell me a little bit about how you transitioned from social work into media.
Well, it's an interesting story. I never thought I would ever be in. I never thought I'd be in media. Hi, Dragon Squad. I, right out of college, became a social worker. And for 5 years, I actually did both media and social work. It was like fake life in the underbelly of society at the same time. I had just tried out as a hobby, just like as a fun thing for this contest, to be a VJ for this entertainment show, bilingual entertainment show in Los Angeles. And then that hobby just grew and grew and grew. And so, yeah, I eventually had to transition. But for 5 years, I was a social worker by day and then a TV host at night.
That's awesome.
And I actually worked with John's wife, Arlene Santana, who was on the same show. That's where we met.
Yeah, I was wondering if that was the one that you were talking about. Well, that's awesome. And that's great. And that's, I mean, look, the goal for the Damage Report and the goal for TYT is to bring progressives from all these different experiences. Like, I was never a social worker. I don't know that life. And it obviously informs what Viviana says about a lot of these topics, which is awesome. Okay, now let's see what's going on out there in the audience as the room gradually grows cooler, I hope. Thank you on YouTube to Gregor McNee and Philip Scannell for becoming members. Appreciate that. You get access to not only the awesome egg next to your name now, but also to our emojis. So isn't that fun? I'm now doing something wrong here. Okay, Luck Dragon in the super chat says, my invisible sky daddy forbids me from giving any help or assistance to any fascist, exceptionalist, conservative Republican. Well, is Luck Dragon being sincere or not? I guess it's up to every individual judge. I think he's joking, but Kyle Cushing says, if you're performing a service on behalf of the state, you should be following the rules as though you are the state. That county recorder got locked up for not recording same-sex marriage licenses.
Yeah,
I agree. I guess it wasn't sincere in that case. I don't know. Okay, Library Dragon says, by the way, couldn't watch a live yesterday, but absolutely agree with your point in the pre-show about votes with small groups of dissent being more interesting, narrow margins than one or two dissenters. Thank you. We're actually gonna have an example of that a little bit later on in the show. Desiree says, can't believe this is my first super chat. Been watching your show for years and I love you, Jay. Love the brilliant Viviana too. Thank you, Desiree. I appreciate that. Sister Soul says, what difference does it make as long as the children are loved and taken care of? One would think, but maybe you believe that certain types of people are incapable of loving and taking care of kids. What a sick way to go through your life. Anyway, Alexis says, I need to see stuff about Biden and Putin meeting up. So Alexis, I talked briefly about one section of it in the pre-show. There just wasn't a ton that I found super fascinating. I apologize. Sometimes I fail on the show just because I don't like covering things that I'm not personally that interested in. And I know it's newsworthy and everything, and I know that the news covered a lot. I just didn't find it super interesting. Not much really happened, but I apologize for the lack of content about that. Anyway, let's see. Okay, Trey Field says, didn't Dr. King talk about wanting to get rid of the filibuster? That just goes to show you how long we've been dealing with this problem. Yes, so I mentioned briefly in the chat, so Trey Fields, we did show some historic video of MLK Jr. talking about that like a half century ago, and for the very similar reasons actually. And unfortunately, we're having the same nonsense debates about bipartisanship and the honor and traditions of the Senate and all that, and it's holding up the exact same sort of social progress as it was before Viviana and I were actually alive. Now that said, lots more news. We'll be back after this. Hello everyone, we've got a little bit more time left in this first hour. Reminder that coming up after the program in about 45 minutes, We've got Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie, where I am gonna be joining for the first time on Dr. Ritchie's show as a co-host. I can't wait. I've had him on as a co-host 1,000 times. Now for the first time, I'm gonna be co-host. It's exciting times, and I hope that everyone watches and shows their support over at youtube.com/indisputable_TYT. And that said, let's jump into maybe my favorite story of the day. Over the past few weeks, 2 congresswomen have gotten in trouble for things that they said that people interpreted as anti-Semitic. You have Representative Ilhan Omar on the Democratic side, and you have Marjorie Greene on the Republican side. And what Marjorie Greene said, that the mask thing with it being the same as the Holocaust, that's insane. I think that we can all agree that. With Representative Ilhan Omar, there is a brigade of people out there that mine every single thing that she says, looking to have an issue with it. It's not to say that she can't ever say anything that's wrong, but it is to say that what she says is probably going to be manipulated for the gain of the right. But that's just me saying that, right? There's no evidence that that's actually going on. Well, there sort of might be, because Morning Consult did a fascinating poll. What they did was they gave the 2 statements, Ilhan Omar's and Marjorie Greene's, to a bunch of people and asked them, is this anti-Semitic? But some of them got the quote with the person who said it. Some of them just got the quote and they didn't know who said it. And it's fascinating the difference in their evaluation of whether these statements are anti-Semitic, whether they know who the person is or not. So let's go briefly through with Representative Ilhan Omar, who said, we must have the same level of accountability and justice for all victims of crimes against humanity. We have seen unthinkable atrocities committed by the US, Hamas, Israel, Afghanistan, and the Taliban, which is, I'm sorry if this is inconvenient to you, simply a fact. All of those groups have committed atrocities and war crimes. I'm sorry if you don't like reality. So anyway, is that anti-Semitic? So amongst all voters, without identifying her, 31% say that it is. With identifying her, 35% say that it is. So a little bit more, about 10% of the people who say it's anti-Semitic is gained when they know that it's Ilhan Omar. Amongst Republicans though, it goes from 36%. Just 1 out of 3 Republicans have a problem with that statement. Once they know it's Ilhan Omar, it's almost half. So it is massively dependent, Viviana, on whether they know it's Ilhan Omar. 40% without identification say, no, that's not anti-Semitic. It drops to 28%. So this is, it's not to say that none of them have a problem with the statement regardless. Some do, but it is so dependent on having Ilhan Omar's name associated with that statement.
I mean, we're not surprised, but I'm really glad that somebody sat down and did this study because it just puts it right there in black and white. Something we already knew. I mean, and this poor woman has been putting herself literally on the front lines and fighting for what is right. I mean, what is wrong with that statement? Shouldn't we all feel that there should be accountability for war crimes? I mean, isn't that something as human beings we should be standing up for? But we've seen it time and time again, and it's a very tough issue with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, because anytime you bring it up, you get accused of anti-Semitism when it doesn't have anything to do with religion and it has everything to do with government. I mean, we're talking about politicians here making choices to kill people. It's not a religious thing in the Torah that says anything about it. They're using these religious reasons to justify, and again, that's a government, and that's not even across the board. So I don't know why just even the 35% that didn't know anything of just all voters, I don't know why they're so offended by this, other than these are buzzwords that they feel like they should be offended by.
There's a lot of people that don't like to think about, leave out the Israel part. They don't like to think about the fact that the US has committed endless war crimes and atrocities historically. Yeah. Even though, again, she said Hamas and the Taliban did too.
Right.
Anyway, so that's for Ilhan Omar. What about for Marjorie Greene? So Marjorie Greene said, vaccinated employees get a vaccination logo, just like the Nazis forced Jewish people to wear a gold star. You crazy person. Anyway, with all voters, 58% said that's anti-Semitic. Hey, what do you know? The number's higher because it is. That's totally true. When you identify that it's Marjorie Greene, the number actually goes down.
Yeah.
Well, wait. Why would that be? Well, it turns out that you can see. Now, is there an effect where Democrats are more critical of the statement if they know it's Marjorie Greene? Yes, the rise isn't as much, but it is there. For Republicans, though, it's a fairly massive drop. 55% say, no, you can't say that, that's anti-Semitic. it drops to 41% if they know that it's her. It's a 14-point drop. That simply having her face associated with it makes them think, oh no, it's totally cool to compare it to the Holocaust. What a weird thing. So look, there is blame to go around. This is one of the biases that we have is, it's motivated reasoning. We want to achieve certain goals. We process information, sort of trying to keep it in line with our preconceived notions about a lot of different things, including individuals. But this is yet another piece of evidence that effect seems to be stronger on the right than on the left. You can see it in both, but it's definitely stronger when it comes to the conservatives.
We have a lot of reasons for that. There's a lot more of less tolerant people, seemingly, on the right. Yeah. But I think really what this study points out more than anything is the dangers of a two-party system and the polarization that can take place because of it, even without any knowledge or facts, just the fact of whose side they already think they're on, and that goes for both the left and the right. And so really this is the ugliness about a two-party system and really why we don't have a true democracy, because people just rely on somebody wearing their team color to make their decision.
Totally, there's way too much tribalism in virtually everything. Especially in politics, but it's not just politics. I was talking randomly, just briefly. Anna and I were talking. We did a bonus episode about woodworking, and we talked about I watch DIY and maker YouTube channels.
Yeah.
You can see in the comments, bring up what brand of power tools you use, and the sparks will fly. People go crazy. You use Milwaukee, Makita's the best brand. It's everything. There's tribalism for literally everything.
Yeah, it's true.
So we shouldn't be that surprised that it has an effect on even things like evaluations of anti-Semitism. And by the way,
it's just more dangerous.
DeWalt man. Anyway, yes, that's true.
What's your brand?
DeWalt. I also have some Ryobi. Anyway,
how dare you?
Mostly you choose one brand because
it's Ryobi only.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, very briefly, we have time for this one last story. There's so much more I want to fit in the show, so let's jump into this. Most shocking news, maybe this entire year, US workers stressed out, it turns out, and not just sort of objectively stressed out. They're among the most stressed workers in the entire world, according to a new study. The US is really bad. Canada is also pretty stressed out, so solidarity with our northern brothers and sisters. But some 57% of US and Canadian workers reported feeling stress on a daily basis, up 8 points from just last year, and compared with 43% of people who generally feel that way in all other non-US and Canada countries. Now, this is a trend that we've been seeing. Rates of daily stress, worry, sadness, and anger have been trending upward for American workers since 2009, which not coincidentally is the economic collapse. Concerns over the virus last year, sickness, financial insecurity, and racial trauma all contributed to added stress during the pandemic. And interestingly, the spikes in stress have been especially acute for women in the last year, with 62% of working women in the US and Canada reporting daily feelings of stress compared with 52% of men. So it's bad across the board, really bad for women especially, Viviana.
Well, I think during this pandemic, a lot of women have been unfairly burdened with the tasks of childcare and homeschooling and all of that kind of stuff that happens in the home, since everybody was at home for the most period of time. And that just is a trend that happens anyway. Unfortunately, most couples, there isn't an equal distribution of labor in the home. So you add that to a woman who's also working outside the home and in the home, she's bound to be more stressed. But we're gonna see an uprising for workers' rights hopefully soon. The last election we had at least in California, and there's been a lot across the country of these gig economy workers and these companies really trying to protect themselves and not the workers. And so now with this pandemic, a lot of people have been staying home. They're reevaluating their priorities. They recognize maybe they were working too hard before and how much stress they were under because of it. And so people are starting to really question, was I being exploited? And the answer, yes, you were.
Yeah. And people get it.
Are.
I think there's an increase, I think over the past decade or two in class consciousness. People get the situation that they have. People getting frustrated. I mean, you have it obviously, especially on the left, but you have it some on the right. It gets co-opted into xenophobia and hatred of critical race theory and stuff like that. They obviously clearly are frustrated about how they've been screwed over, by major corporations and given a massive assist by the government. Definitely. Now, I would ask to the ruling elites in government and the economy, do you think that this is a good thing? Do you think that this is gonna go well? Like, how much more can you pile on workers before something terrible happens? Whether it's something that from your perspective would be terrible, like a political revolution that finally puts pro-worker candidates in office, or something even crazier. Is this good? Do you like what you're seeing here? And the solution, not difficult. Like when you ask workers why they're stressed out, they don't say crazy things. They say fairly reasonable things like, I don't want to be forced to work in a place where I'm gonna get a deadly virus. I want to not be ground into the ground with how much I'm working. And it would be nice that if I actually get paid. Maybe it would be cool to be able to take a little bit of time off when I have a kid or something like that. These are very reasonable demands. And we're gonna see. We're gonna see if the Democrats deliver on any of this. If they don't, I know what's gonna happen. You know what's gonna happen. We're not gonna have Democrats in charge for very long.
Yeah.
Now, one other thing I would advise that they should look into, and maybe Viviana, you have a stance on this. We only have about 2 minutes left, but I would remind people, 4-day work weeks, great idea for fighting back against stress, shown to increase productivity. And international examples like this Microsoft study in Japan back in 2019, they've tested it all over the world. It's a great idea. We earned a 2-day weekend a really long time ago. When do we get our 3rd day? That's what I ask you, America.
We're not even get the weekends anymore, John. People are working 7 days a week now. They got their gig, they got their other gig, they got all this stuff going on. Meanwhile, Jeff Bezos just bought a $169 million home in Beverly Hills. So don't tell me they can't afford it, because that's what they say.
Does he have a parking spot for his space shuttle?
Yeah, it's actually there is a garage for the space shuttle. There's
probably got an elevator.
No, but this is the thing. You can afford it. You can afford to give them health care. You can afford to give them time off. You can afford to give them better wages. And you just maybe have to buy an $89 million home. Is that so bad?
Do you have nice hardwood floors in the $80 million home?
They both have equally nice parquet wood floors.
That's great.
Beautiful.
Great.
There's no
by the way, I love to fit in any like call for a 4-day work week that I can. So I'm just gonna remind people also, there have been studies that show that it'd be great for the environment. 4-day week campaign in the environmental organization Platform London found that if the UK moved to a 4-day work week by 2025, their emissions could drop by about 20%, roughly equivalent to taking all of the cars off the streets. And the productivity would be up overall. So again, I don't understand why more companies aren't doing this.
For all the pro-lifers out there, it helps kids too. Their parents get to spend time with them, yay.
Yeah, exactly. So whether you're worried about stress, whether you're worried about all this stuff, totally true. Anyway, we got more, thanks linear audience. We got more for the online audience after this. everyone, members, YouTube, Twitch, thank you for still being here. We've got more content for you. And reminder, after this half hour, Indisputable comes up with Dr. Rashad Ritchie, youtube.com/indisputable2it. I'm gonna be joining him. It's gonna be fun. We're gonna talk about a lot of different stuff. Jam Tomb, thank you, by the way, for subscribing. I see your comment there. I also wanted to let you know, if you weren't watching yesterday, awesome live in-person event coming up in the near future. That would be the Economic Justice Town Hall in Ohio. So we've got Senator Nina Turner, we've got Cenk Uygur, we've got Killer Mike. They're gonna be heading to Cleveland, Ohio on June 26, 2021 to talk about issues having to do with economic justice, how we get a living wage, all this stuff. You're gonna, if you haven't listened to Nina Turner speak, it's just amazing. It's gonna get you jazzed up, fired up about politics. You're not gonna wanna miss it. TYT.com/events is a great place to go to sign up for information about it, to know when you're gonna be able to get tickets and all that. So that's coming up very soon. Before we jump back in the news, I wanted to get to a few of your comments and questions. Miasa Dragon says, Daddy Dragon, if Manchin changes his party to Republican, won't the math alone give reps back the power? Can he even do that? I need validation again, please, LMAO. Yes, it would. It wouldn't necessarily change that much about the ability of the Democrats getting legislation passed, thanks to him, but it is out there. Nicole Smith says, thank you, John. Thank you, Nicole, I appreciate that. Library Dragon says, got my Rainbow Dragon shirt last week. I don't usually wear t-shirts, but this trans lesbian anarchist dragon is always happy for more pride stuff to wear. That's awesome. Love the shirt, glad that we were able to do that. Dana says, if we don't view our past mistakes, we can't learn from them for our future. What's that saying? Evil only wins if good people do nothing. Thanks, John. Exactly. There's no weakness in accepting the bad things that your country has done, that your family has done. Like some would say, it's necessary to actually grow past those things. And Penguin asked a great question. What if the children who need to be fostered are gay? Don't even put that out there for those agencies to think about, because God knows what they'll do with that consideration. Anyway, tell me what to put. Resubscribed for the 7th month. Thank you for that. Says, I love TDR and TYT in general. It's my main source for news in the day. You can't get this kind of analysis anywhere else, especially not the corporate media. Thanks, TYT. Keep up the good work. Thank you. Tell me what to put. I appreciate that. Jess freaking Ortega cheered. BC Trumpet cheered. Flaco Huesos gifted a tier 1 sub. The community is all out there. BC Trumpet gifted 5 tier 1 subs as well. Thank you to all of you. And we're definitely gonna check in a little bit more, but there's some important stories we wanna get to. So let's jump into our next one. Amazon has not had the best PR for the way it treats its workers over the past year or so. They've tried to ward off a bit of that by doing things like raising wages to $15 an hour. But when you do that and then you crush the attempt in Bessemer to unionize, I would say that that's at best a wash in terms of your relationship with your workers. Now it turns out it's worse than we thought, not just in the daily working environment for the workers, which we're gonna get into some of that, but their approach to what sort of workers they want, and maybe more importantly, how long they want them for. There's this amazing work that's been done, fascinating, about how disposable they consider their workers to be. So let's get into some of this reporting that the New York Times put together. From July to October 2020 alone, so just a brief portion of last year, they hired 350,000 new workers, more than the population of St. Louis. Many recruits hired through computer screening with little conversation or vetting lasted just days or weeks. So they would hire these people in, hundreds of thousands of people, and then within just days and weeks, in an economic downturn where people desperately need this work, people moved on. They couldn't take it. They just could not keep up with the insane standards of productivity that Amazon expects. But this isn't just about the pandemic. Even before it, Amazon was losing about 3% of its hourly associates every week, meaning the turnover among its workforce was roughly 150% a year. When you're losing more than 10% of your workforce every month, month after month after month, that should be some indication that maybe you're doing something wrong when it comes to the way you treat your workers. But it's not that they don't know that. They know that, they just don't care. And we're gonna get into some of that information a little bit, but I wanted, Viviana, I wanted to get your reaction to a bit of this.
I mean, like you just said, it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing, and we're not surprised. And I like that you mentioned before the pandemic these numbers were existing, because there has been a lot of talk about people on unemployment, not wanting to work, and that's the reason they're turning down jobs, et cetera, which in some cases is true because they don't want to be exploited. I mean, if you can make a decent living somewhere where you're proud of what you're doing and you're not doing backbreaking work for minimum wage, why would you do that job if you can stand unemployment? So that's one side thing, but this has been happening for a decade now, whenever Amazon started taking off, and the pandemic just gave them more money and they needed more employees. It's not surprising. I mean, we know that capitalism is based on the exploitation of the workforce. So if we're going to continue to let capitalism run unfettered, then we're going to continue to have this problem.
Yeah, and I would say in this case, this is almost like, this is more efficient exploitation than I think I've seen before, because it really comes in all forms. Like, sure, they're upping the pay or whatever, but your actual experience of work is terrible. The danger, which we're gonna get to, that you're exposed to, is terrible, and they don't even want to keep you around for reasons we will get to, philosophical reasons we'll get to in just a little bit. But first of all, let's focus a bit on the pandemic. So one of the many potential explanations for why the turnover is so high. What do you have to do to get 3% of your workforce every week to abandon you? Well, back during the pandemic, workers were told to take as much paid time off as they needed, then hit with mandatory overtime. When Amazon offered employees flexible personal leaves, the system handling them jammed, issuing a blizzard of job abandonment notices to workers and sending staff scrambling to save them, according to human resources and warehouse employees. So no, we're like totally understanding of your need for wellness, and like, it's okay to not be okay. Oh, by the way, you're gonna be fired because we think that you're not okay. Right. And it's totally a mistake. It's not intentional. We just, for some reason, don't have enough people to actually adjudicate what this computer is doing to you. And then, of course, there's the actual sickness. So the company didn't tell its workers at one New York City warehouse, JFK 8, or other warehouses, the number of COVID-19 cases that have been found there. They would say sometimes that individuals had contracted it, but they wouldn't say how many. It could be 1, it could be 20, it could be far more. Amazon did say that it was publicly disclosing confirmed cases to health officials, but New York City records don't show any evidence of that. So they're being very vague to their workers, making it so they have no idea how much danger they're actually in. They say they're coordinating with the city, but there's no evidence that they actually do that. One warehouse had at least 700 confirmed cases between March 2020 and March 2021. And that's the ones who were actually able to be tested. Because to be tested, you need to have tests, which back in March, we didn't really. It took a while to spool that up. And you also have to have like 5 contiguous minutes off work to go get tested. And so 700 is what they found at one warehouse. God only knows how much it is. God only knows how many people died as a result of this and this lax approach to your workers' safety.
It's really upsetting because if you think back to when we first started learning about coronavirus, and we didn't know a lot about it, and we were wiping down our cardboard boxes, and so many of us had the luxury of staying home and feeling safe in our bubble. Meanwhile, these Amazon workers are touching those boxes from international shipping, most of them from China as well, and delivering them to our doorstep. So they should have been given extra care, extra time, whatever's necessary. And you said contiguous 5 minutes. The lines for testing were hours long. Yeah. So you needed a half a day to go get tested. And this is not the only company that has hit these employees like, oh, take the time off. Supermarkets were doing it. Everybody was, Uber was doing it. Take the time off if you're sick, and then they get punished. And I think we have been with workers' rights for so long that we don't know what it's like without them, and we're starting to get a taste of it.
Yeah. Well, look, we've been talking about some of this, and we're gonna, for the director's purposes, we're gonna skip this next section about the time off task stuff. You know that they're required to literally spend every second that they're working. They get in trouble if they don't. It's assumed that they're slacking off, and you can potentially be fired for a few violations like that. But I want to talk about the bigger philosophical issue that I think is birthing a lot of these other things. So we found out this week that Amazon is losing hundreds of thousands of employees within days or weeks of hiring. These people are hired on and then don't or can't do the actual work. It's set up to be too much. That seems like it'd be a major problem for a corporation like this, but they apparently don't consider it to be. In fact, they've sort of set up the system with the goal of having massive turnover. so much turnover that now they're a little bit worried in some areas of the country that they're gonna run out of people who haven't worked at Amazon. They're literally going to churn through the entire, like Elaine Bennis in New York City. They're gonna have to go around to the start of the list again, I guess. So that's a real concern. Now, how do you get to that? Well, we have some information thanks to David Nykirk, a former Amazon vice president. He said, and by the way, he's the guy who built their warehouse human resources operations. He says some of the problems stemmed from ideas the company had developed back when it was a much smaller company. Mr. Bezos, the head of it, and one of the richest people in the entire world, didn't want an entrenched workforce, calling it quote, a march to mediocrity, and saw low-skilled jobs as relatively short-term. So what do you mean you don't want an entrenched workforce? Well, there were a couple of reasons given for that. One, they know that if they keep workers on for a while, the workers might expect at some point to move up in the workforce. They might want to get some higher job, a management job. They weren't interested in that. They didn't want to promote people from within, so they ground people down to get rid of them. They also would talk about how they need to keep their employees fresh. Fresh is the word that they would use. Now, I don't know what freshness really means for an employee, but in theory, there are two ways that you could keep your employees fresh. One, you could not grind them into a gray paste. You could do that. You could give them some time off, make them feel appreciated, all of that. That's how I stay fresh all the time. Or you could get rid of them and get new ones. Get literal fresh people who hadn't worked there. And that is clearly the approach that they kept. And why not? Like, if you don't ever want a union, if you don't ever want your workers to be able to come together and push for better conditions, don't have them be established employees. Have them come and go. Have it be a very sort of fluid thing where you never have people who become invested in the position and want to make it better. And that's the situation that they appear to have made, Viviana.
I mean, it's what Marx talks about, the tenets of building wealth. I mean, you need to make sure that you can crank through the workforce, and they're disposable. They're disposable. Not only, like you mentioned, what we already know about the crazy demands of their time, but if you allow them to just get burned out rather quickly, then you get a new crop in. But you are going to run out. I mean, it's not surprising to me considering how much this company has grown in the last decade alone. They have to be doing things like this, tricks. They don't care at all about their employees. They never have. And unfortunately so, because it's such an amazing business idea as well. Like, everybody loves Amazon. It's really a convenient thing, especially during the pandemic. It really makes it easy. And instead of using that for good, Peter Parker, you're using it for evil. I mean, you make the choice here. You go, okay, I have this power, I have this ability. Once he got out of that one room office with Amazon posted on the wall, once he got out of there, he had an ability to say, let me take care of Americans. Let me help make this company amazing. But he's just looking for himself. I mean, we know something's going wrong. Guy's sending himself to space. What's gonna happen to this planet? Is he looking for a new workforce? What's going on?
How badly do you want to get away from your workers that you're willing to go to space? Jeff Bezos, according to Viviana, your friendly neighborhood taskmaster. Anyway.
I didn't say friendly. I didn't say friendly.
That's true. Well, yeah, that is definitely true. Okay, so we, I could go on about this for a long time, but we don't have much time. We only have about 10 more minutes, and I want to get to this next story. Very briefly, couple super chats. Dale Mitchell says, I'm in Dallas, Fort Worth, and had to sit for hours without power last night. My neighbors weren't aware of what's coming. Thanks, John, for keeping eyes to what's going on here. We need help getting leaders here who will fight for people in Texas. I don't know why they keep electing people that leave them to suffer and die if the winter happens to be bad and if the summer inevitably is horrendous. I don't understand how they're not punished for that. But they're very good at distracting their workers and making, like, they've got conservatives more worried. Like, the conservatives will be dying of heat exposure while talking about how they need to stop critical race theory. Like, that is what Republicans have produced.
Well, probably their brains are fried, so it makes sense.
Potentially, yeah. It's just terrible. Like, people died in the winter. People are going to die in Texas and other states because people don't care. It's so horrible. And a lot of, again, I know I keep promoting this episode of
not John Ted Cruz though.
No, he's gonna be gone. He's gonna be in a nice resort. Anyway, watch the episode on heat and prisons from John Oliver. It was great work. Best show. Anyway, with that, let's move on to something absolutely horrendous. Tucker Carlson has had a lot of bad guests, but I think he may have finally outdone himself by bringing on Charles Murray to talk to him on his Tucker Carlson Today show. So who is Charles Murray? Well, Charles Murray is the guy who wrote The Bell Curve. You know, the like white brains are better than non-white brains thing. That guy's still around and still spreading the idea that IQ, the cognitive ability, is not something that's produced by environment, upbringing, nutrition, whatever. It's just baked into you. Some people are better than others. Wink, wink. Except the wink is explicit. So anyway, he's been described by Vox as with his work, The Bell Curve, saying that America should stop trying to improve poor kids' material living standards because doing so encourages poor, low IQ women to have more children. Now that's their description of him. What's his description of what effect his work is supposed to have? Well, he said this about his book, Losing Ground, back in 1994. A huge number of well-meaning whites fear that they are closet racists, and this book tells them they are not. It's going to make them feel better about things they already think, but do not know how to say. And my, hasn't the right become more savvy and being super racist and getting away with it? Well, I have an example of that, and that is his appearance on Tucker Carlson, where they get into a lot of different stuff. But I want you to see, in his words, the discussion about race last year, its intersection with politics. Here is Charles Murray.
Last 4 or 5 years, as the accusations against working class and middle class whites, and especially white males, have increased in intensity and viciousness, with whites being responsible for all of the ills of blacks, you have had 2 very different reactions among whites. One of those is the reaction of last summer, where members of the white elites were banging their foreheads in the ground in apology, saying it's our fault, we've been racist, we haven't realized it, but we have, it is systemic racism. We saw an awful lot of that. Meanwhile, you had the much larger population of white middle class and working class people who were not insulted into agreement. They were hearing these accusations of how terrible they are, and they're saying to themselves, wait a minute, I have been friendly and respectful of black colleagues. I am not a racist. I have done nothing wrong, and suddenly now I'm told it's all my fault.
Okay, to be clear, the only whites that were told everything is all their fault were from people like Tucker Carlson purposefully misconstruing and mispresenting the argument of literally any of the conversations about race that have been going on. Also, by the way, if you think I've been courteous to my black colleagues means you're not a racist, you just might be a racist, actually. But anyway, so all these white elites, they're like banging their head on the ground. Yes, I'm the worst. I've done everything wrong. And the clever working class whites are saying, hey, I didn't cause all of society's ills. None of that has anything to do with the actual conversation, but it is setting up for some interesting further videos we're gonna get to in just a sec. But what did you have to say about that?
I mean, this is really pandering to the white fragility that a lot of people experience. And it's really upsetting when we go down to the base, like, I didn't do it, it's not my fault kind of mentality. And it touches on what you said earlier, like there's nothing wrong with acknowledging the trauma and the ills that the United States has done. That's how we grow. And racism and systemic racism doesn't fall just on white Americans. It falls on all of us. I've said this before, you don't have to be white to be a white supremacist. And that is how we are all raised in this country and even globally at this point about what the norms are, who's smart, who's successful, who's beautiful. This is sort of socialized into us and indoctrinated, if you will, into us. And so the mere fact that Tucker Carlson and so many, even members of my own family who are not white, they're just a little bit white and they just hold on to that so tight. They really kind of feel like, well, it's not my fault. And then they start listing, statistics about there's more black people in prison and there's more criminality between certain, ethnic groups. And so this is what people want to hear. Those people want to hear this guy. And It is horrendous and disgusting that we're even giving this guy time right now because he is a total kook.
Well, yeah, I mean, I want to respond to it because he's on Tucker Carlson's literal daytime show. Tucker Carlson,
and this is becoming mainstream, John. We have to now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It's scary.
It's not just his nighttime show. He's now throughout all day. He had on the Bell Curve guy, and it's like, oh, Tucker Carlson's being Tucker. But anyway, it gets even worse, and so we're only gonna get to some of this. We're gonna have to leave some for tomorrow. But here is Charles Murray's prediction about where this is going, and you're gonna get a bit of Tucker Carlson too.
The situation is this: you have 13% of the population, and that's the proportion of blacks in the U.S. population, who are accusing 60% of the population, which is the proportion of non-Latino whites, of being bad, evil people. That's kind of a self-defeating strategy. And what I'm scared of is that whites are going to start adopting identity politics themselves. They're going to say, well, okay, if it works for blacks, if it works for Latinos, hey, we're an identity too. And they will start to have political views and advocate policies that are based on their identity as whites. And if that's the case, if all the races are agreed it's okay to use the power of government to benefit our guys against the other guys, that's disaster politically.
Okay, I think we might have left off the last bit, but Tucker says, what would that look like? What would it look like if there were white politicians trying to use the government to benefit white people? Because he doesn't know. He's never seen it. It's never happened. I love though that they said they might start having white identity politics, and then they went to a shot of Tucker blank face staring. It was literally a picture of white identity politics. But he doesn't know what it would look like because he's never imagined it. It's never been a thing, Viviana.
Yeah, that's the funny part about it. What? They're gonna start using the government to benefit themselves. It's just really, this is why critical race theory is so important, because if this is what they think acknowledging systemic racism does by blaming one group, then they don't understand it. And they need to study critical race theory, because it's not your fault, John, because you're white. It's not anybody's fault. But we live in a government and a society where there have been things that have happened, and we have revisionist history. I was just listening to a story about the Alamo, which we claim to be such a great thing. It isn't. It wasn't. It was thievery. And we need to go. Oh, go ahead.
I apologize. Unfortunately, we're about to hit up against our, there's so much more I want to talk about. We're about to hit our break. But anyway, thank you so much for your commentary on this, for joining us on the show. It's always awesome to have you here, and hopefully we'll talk more about politics very soon. Where can people find you in the meantime?
Anytime, John. You can find me on Twitter and on Instagram, Viviana Vigil, and you can check out this summer. I'm putting out little pieces of my show, Contextualize This, in little bite-sized forms. So enjoy it.
That is awesome. Thank you everybody for watching. Really appreciate you being here. Indisputable is coming up, youtube.com/indisputable2it. I'm gonna be joining him. Stay safe out there, stay sane out there, and I'll see you soon.
I don't know if y'all can handle the show today. And I just mean that straight up. Welcome to Indisputable. I'm your host, Rashad Ritchie. We got a lot of ground to cover. During the show, my big homie John from the Damage Report would join me to break down news of the day. But before we get there, let me remind you of some elements on the show. The bullpen, guaranteed to be an exciting bullpen. The guy is known as Dr. Vadi, affectionately known as Dr. Vadi Bacham. And he will be on the show today. He's a black conservative guy, well-educated, even trained at Oxford. And he's going to debate me, and he probably will get really seminary-like. And I'm not a seminary guy, but I do read stuff. So it should be an interesting debate with this very well-known, very popular apologist of the Christian conservative evangelical doctrine. You don't want to miss that bullpen. Also, wish a Karen would. I got a different kind of Karen today. You know, we have been talking about and highlighting these Karens all across the country. And for the most part, they end up running against or coming up against individuals who are just very nice and very courteous. Not this time. Karen found the right one today, all right? So you don't want to miss any of it. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get to it. An off-duty police officer. Now, remember, off-duty. He's just driving. But this off-duty police officer, he believes he's on duty, and he actually says he's on duty 24/7. Well, this off-duty police officer in Rutherford County, Tennessee, has now been arrested. He's been arrested for aggravated assault. Well, he claims that someone cut him off on the road, and he decided to pursue this individual as if this person committed some type of felony act and he was on duty. Not only did he pursue the driver that he claims cut him off, the chase, and it was a chase, went to 120 miles per hour. No kidding. Eventually, the guy being chased pulled over. He just sees there's a crazy man who has decided to chase him down the highway. He pulls over. This cop gets out of his car, pulls his gun, and here it is.
I'm gonna film it.
911, what's the emergency?
I'm on Shiloh and Medical Center. There's a guy with a gun drawn right here in a Holiday Inn. He's pointing at a man. He's screaming at him right now. He's telling him to get on the ground. He's not doing anything. We need the police.
Hold on, because you're within the city limits, okay?
Not on duty. You can't. Doesn't matter. I am on duty 24/7.
This cop's saying he's on duty 24/7.
Get on the ground. Get on the ground. Police. I can't believe it.
Okay, I need you to hold on.
I am. He's an off-duty cop. Okay, well, I'm just explaining what's happening. He has his gun drawn to the guy. We're not here.
You've been on my ass. How did I almost hit you? Reckless driving as well. So, man, this guy pulled a gun on me just because
I'm on the phone.
I'm a road rage issue. I need him in the news.
He's telling the guy to get on the ground. He's at gunpoint. He's an off-duty, looks like an off-duty police officer.
What kind of Deckard Police Department?
He's not even from this county.
You're by the Holiday Inn, right?
Yeah, right in front of. It's a 4x4 Dodge Ram.
It's a road rage.
It's like a road rage incident.
He's not even from this area.
He's not from the area.
Ridiculous, insane. This is the treatment of another citizen by a road rage cop who has now been arrested for aggravated assault. Officer Ward is his name. Ward, who was off duty at the time, flashed his badge and signaled for the driver to slow down. The two men exchanged words before Ward pursued the driver at 120 miles per hour until they both exited onto Medical Center Parkway and turned into Silo Hill Lane, according to the police report. Investigators said that after both men got out of their vehicles, Ward pulled out his gun. Thank God for the individual who was recording this entire matter. Now, here are some issues I have immediately. Number one, he was arrested and then allowed to resign by that police department. The police department did not fire him. The police department did not make an example out of him. The police department allowed him to resign. Now, in addition to that, we are unsure if this individual will actually be held accountable for a crime. Yes, he has been charged, but we do not know if he will lose his post-certification or if he will actually be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. And here's how I feel about police officers. Anytime you hold a position of public trust, you should not be held to a basic standard of care and liability. You should be held to a higher standard of care and liability. Let me give you an example. As if a person is a medical doctor, as a medical doctor, they are held to a higher standard of care. If they are a psychiatrist, they are held to a higher standard of care. But for some reason, police officers, they want to hold everyone else to a higher standard of accountability but themselves. And they hide behind these rules and laws and statutes under qualified immunity doctrine. Makes no damn sense whatsoever. To chop some of this up and to break it down with me, I got John, I got the damage report on Indisputable. Y'all can't handle all this.
Hopefully they'll be able to figure out a way, because I like it here already. I want to stay here. Very excited to be brought onto the show, Dr. Ritchie. Thank you.
Man, what are your thoughts, man? I appreciate you being on the show. What are your thoughts about this? And I was looking at your reaction when you saw this extreme aggression out of this guy. What went through your mind?
I mean, I think that I'm the bad guy, that I'm surprised by what I saw there. Why am I still surprised by what I saw there? I guess I cannot I tried. I'm a lefty. I'm trying to put myself in the position of people in the news, like trying to be compassionate. That's a component of it. I don't understand how these people think that the things they do are acceptable, that you can treat people in this way, that he thought he could get away with it. Now I get one of the reasons he thought he could get away with it in terms of the system is because lots of people in his position do get away with it. And one has to wonder, absent the cell phone camera, like, would he still have his job? Would he have been forced to resign if there had just been a story about this, if it wasn't something you could actually see? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's 100% accurate. Number one, if this guy would do all of this, he'll make up a lie as to why he did it, right? So he would just make up a false narrative and say, hey, I had to do it because this individual did A, B, and C, which if you don't have video showing that he didn't, is now your word against the police. And 100 times out of 100 times, the cop wins in that scenario. So thank God for this woman. And by the way, this woman had a lot of skill, brother. She called 911 and recorded. I don't know how the hell she did that. She needs to teach seminars and classes. But she called 911 and recorded the incident and was able to provide significant context and narration to what was happening. So everything fit together when the gentleman told his side of the story, and they did execute an arrest warrant. But here's what else goes through my mind. If this would have been a black male, because remember, the individual who is being accosted by this cop, he's not getting down on the ground because he doesn't even see what's the problem. I don't care if you're an off-duty cop. That doesn't bother me. I did nothing illegal. But I wonder what would have happened if this individual would have been, in fact, a person of color. That goes through my mind routinely when I see things like this from cops.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder in both cases. I mean, how much worse could the cop's potential reaction have been in that? And what if it was an off-duty black cop and someone else came by and saw just a person, plain clothes, pointing a gun at that white guy? What would the reaction have been? I honestly don't know. I hope nothing. I don't know. I worry for anyone who gets involved in these sorts of situations. As we were watching that video, I was worried for the woman in the situation.
Yeah.
Because she's filming it and she has this idea already that it's probably an off-duty cop. That's what the guy seems to be saying. That does not mean he won't do something crazy. I mean, she's literally watching him rage out on some guy. She could justifiably be very worried about what his reaction might be to her. He's got a gun, she's very close. And so as in almost all of these cases, it is incredibly brave for someone to be willing to risk their property being destroyed or their own physical safety in filming something like this and letting us know about it. And it's so important because, as you pointed out, you can't trust the cops' written statements about this. Look at what the initial statement about George Floyd was before the video came out. You had no idea what had happened based on that. And I apologize, I forget the name of the individual who was killed, I think in 2019, the video just came out. They said that he crashed into a tree and died on impact. No, they dragged him out, they beat him to death. And we only know that, thankfully, because the video was eventually released. So thank you to all the people who are willing to risk such danger to make sure that we know what's really going on.
Yeah, that incident you're talking about in 2019, that video was released by way of a leak because the investigation was ongoing, and they were basically using the ongoing investigation terminology to stop the video from being released. Somebody leaked it. And also, to your point, you don't know exactly what will go down every time. But I'm gonna say this, man, and you can say it's political, that's fine. I promise you that cop voted for Trump. And there's an ideology connected to these individuals. I would put good money on that, all right? That's just where I'm at. Let's shift gears for a minute. There's something really, really sinister about some folks who just simply need power. Now, according to my research, this is like a D-list politician, right? A person who's not even on the radar to win an election. In Florida, there's a congressional seat that is opened up. It's currently held by a Democrat. The Democrat is running for governor. That's some of the background. But you got these Republicans fighting in this Republican primary, right? So there's a recording that has been obtained by Politico. Florida GOP candidate William Braddock was secretly recorded threatening to send a Russian and Ukrainian hit squad to fellow Republican opponent Anna Paulina Luna and make her, and I quote, disappear. Now, when I first read this story, I said, okay, obviously I'm reading something that is supposed to be a joke. And if I actually hear the recording, then I will see this guy's just putting on and saying something that's extreme, but funny. But he was serious as a heart attack. 30-minute phone call. It was with a conservative activist who recorded the call because she was concerned about Braddock's unhinged dislike of this political opponent. The seat in question is a congressional seat in the Tampa Bay area. So it's a major seat. And you have major individuals connected to the power structure of the Tampa area. So according to Braddock, he mentions that he has access to a hit squad if the polling favors Luna. All right, so here's part of that recording.
I don't want to hear this. I don't want to know about this, but we have access to a hit squad too, Ukrainians and Russians.
Damn.
You did not hear that from me.
I didn't hear what?
But this is getting deep. And I don't want you to be on the wrong side of it.
I don't want to be on the wrong side of it either. So why would we need, I guess, that's.
Oh no, you're not going to be, you're not going to be a part of it regardless. But I'm just saying, don't get caught in public like supporting Luna, because the Luna supporters Luna's going to go down. And I hope it's by yourself.
Is that why, is that what the Russians are for? That's like.
If we do so my polling people are going to charge me $20,000 to go poll right before the primary. And if the poll says Luna's going to win, she's going to be gone. She's going to disappear.
That's what the man said. She's going to be gone. She's going to disappear. This is how he wins an election in a democracy, according to this recording. And before that part of the recording, he talked about how much money he had coming in. He was going to be involved in this windfall of money, which gives him access to hire a hit squad to kill a political opponent. He also says it's good for the country, and he's willing to do this for the country. Here's some more of the video of the recording.
For the good of our country, we have to sacrifice the few.
Sacrifice the what?
The few. For the better of the good of the majority of the people, we've got to sacrifice the few.
So.
She's a Democrat with a gun. She supported Obama immigration policies. She's flip-flopping on abortion. She's a stupid, excuse my language, social media influencer.
Yeah.
There's no reason she should be in office. And I'd be terrified if she was controlling my quality of life.
The only problem is like, okay, so let's just say that like Luna's gonna win. Like
she won't. And if we have polling that proves she won't, she's gonna be gone. Period. That's end of discussion. Luna's not an issue.
So how do we make her go though? I just don't understand that.
How do you make her what?
How do we make her go?
I call up my Russian and Ukrainian hit squad, and within 24 hours, they're sending me pictures of her disappearing.
Oh, dang.
No, I'm not joking. Like,
wow.
This is beyond my control at this point.
You're not about that life, sir. You're not about that life. And let me tell you why I know you're not about that life. Because people that are don't say things like that on a damn open line, okay? I do believe that you have murderous intent in your heart. I do believe you're a horrible individual. And I do believe if you had the means to do something like that, you probably would, because you're the worst gangster of all. You're the wannabe. You're the guy who puts it out there and willing to do the unthinkable because you want to hold on to power or obtain power. You're a detriment and a dangerous individual. But there's a little bit more, John. There's a little bit more. Let's play the next recording.
I'm self-funded. I got cryptocurrency out the ass. I don't need anybody's help. I've got Freemason brothers offering me Russian hit squads. Listen, I'm in deep, okay? I am in deep. I will admit that. And if I lose, I'm going to have to move out of the country. But if I win, I'm going to help make a difference for everyone in the country. Don't be on the wrong side of supporting Luna.
Yeah.
Because if you're near her when time comes, I just don't want that to happen to you when you've got kids. So don't be associated with Luna under any circumstances, please.
Okay.
And do not repeat this to anybody, because both of us will be in jeopardy if you do.
Yeah, no,
And I'm not just blowing smoke here. I'm being dead ass serious, and it scares me too.
So he's really trying to threaten the activists, the conservative activists, to not support Luna, number one. Number two, this individual, according to all of my research, really had absolutely no chance to pull off an election victory. But John, shocking. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I have a million thoughts. One is, and it doesn't matter in terms of how scared one would be facing this threat, what should happen to him, but you're totally right that he has no chance. What I had read is that Luna wasn't like the front runner. No. He was like obsessively focusing on one of many candidates, not the best funded candidate, not the best known candidate, which makes it even more bizarre. No less scary or significant, but even more bizarre. He says at one point in the video, "It's out of my hands." Is it though? Like, it seems like you're cool with it and that you're fine with it and that you could stop it. You're self-funded. You got crypto bucks, dude. Just don't give them the crypto and then they won't kill people. That seems like a way that it could totally be within your hands. And I would just remind people, this is what crypto does to people. It turns them into these sorts of people. But no, in terms of the actual threat, I couldn't entirely read from you. Do you think he has a Ukrainian Russian hit squad waiting in the wings?
Hell no. He don't have no damn Ukrainian Russian hit squad. He's a wannabe, man. But I do believe, I do think if he had the means, like if he really had a connection somewhere, I do believe he's the kind of person that would try to use it, yes.
So I agree with you. I don't think he has the Ukrainian Russian hit squad. By the way, would you be at least a little bit impressed that they thought you were so significant a mark that they have to send both Ukrainians and Russians after you? They can't just send one hitman. But anyway, do you think he totally made it up out of whole cloth? Or do you think that like he knows a guy and he's not sure if the guy is Ukrainian or Russian, but he thinks that the guy was involved in some sort of crime? Is there like a dude, like a plumber that he's thinking of, or is it totally out of whole cloth?
I think it may be probably 2% of something somewhere down the road connected to someone else. But this individual, like I said, not about that life, John. I cannot see this person being about that life. Doesn't make the threat legal. The threat is still illegal. It doesn't make his activity acceptable. His actions are still unacceptable, and he needs to be held to the standard of law that applies. Now, thankfully, Luna and this activist, they did file a court order so that there's a restraining order now. Obviously, the tape was turned over to the authorities, and the gentleman who's talking all of this evil is basically proclaiming that he's going to sue them. There's going to be a civil suit because there was no permission to record. But then he says the recording is doctored. Now wait a minute, sir. Either the recording is real and they violated the Florida state statute, which is a 2-person permission state. Either they violated that or they violated no law and the video is, or the recording is in fact doctored. You can't have it both ways. It's one or the other.
Yeah.
All right, we got more on the other side. You got a double dose of the big homie John today. The damage report, indisputable. Same time. We got more. Right back.
I'm Nina Turner, and we are on the road to revolution, baby. And I know sometimes people talk about the angry black woman, but I'm gonna tell you something. If you ain't mad as a mofo about what's going on here, something is wrong with you. You know, people ask me all the time, what are the lessons from 2020? Is that progressives have to get more organized and we gotta come together. We have to be as agile as neoliberals. The progressive movement has to understand that it's not just enough for us to have the right ideas. We are right on most of the ideas. We're not perfect, but we're 99% right because it is a humanitarian agenda, but we must get the power. We have to come together in a more unified way so that we utilize our power strategically to topple neoliberalism, and it's gonna happen.
Hi, I'm John, and I'm new to TikTok, but about 3 years ago, I started my daily political news show, The Damage Report, because I noticed this trend where every morning I was waking up to this tsunami of news that was just generally dreadful and horrifying and shocking, and I thought that if I could spend my time helping people to navigate this, serving as a bit of a life raft, pointing out which news is important and why, there are worse ways to spend your day. We're not an average news show, and we don't want our TikTok presence to be average either, so feel free to let us know what you'd like us to do on the platform, and maybe give us a follow at The Damage Report.
All right, Amazon Prime members, here's how you can subscribe for free on Twitch. Start by linking your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account, and then click that little subscribe or resubscribe button below the stream on Twitch. Scroll down and select the subscribe free with Prime button, and then you're finished. Close out immediately and share your little subscription alert with the chat. Send a cute message along with it, and bathe in the sweet, twitchy, Bezos-funded love. Hashtag Bezos Bucks.
Hey everyone, Matteo Scarapore here, author of Black Buck, which is Shop TYT's first fiction book ever. I'm honored. So, Black Buck is about a young man named Darren who's living in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. He lives with his mom, he has his girlfriend, he has his best friend, he has his neighborhood, and his neighborhood has him. Darren's also working at a Starbucks in Midtown Manhattan. And one day, this man, who's real suave and good looking, comes in and asks Darren to give him his regular. But for some reason, Darren says no. This man named Rhett Daniels, who's the CEO of a startup called Someone, located on the 36th floor of the same building, is impressed. And he invites Darren upstairs, and then he extends an offer to join his elite sales team. Darren reluctantly joins, and he soon realizes that he's not the only black salesperson there. He's the only black person in the entire company. So he goes through hell and back in order to make it to the top. And once there, he has status, money, power, but he says, you know what? I don't like being the token black guy. So he hatches a plan to help other people of color infiltrate America's tech startup sales teams, redefining what it means to be a minority in the workplace. This book definitely, if you couldn't tell, touches on many things that are relevant to this moment that we're all living in right now. But it's also connected to the many moments in history that have come before today. I hope that you read it. I hope that you enjoy it. And if you want to order a copy, go to shoptyt.com. Thank you, be well, and happy 2021.
Welcome back to Indisputable. Listen, if you are watching Indisputable on the Damage Report, as I say every day, my big homie John is not going to allow us to stay in his home forever, okay? So make sure you go to Indisputable TYT on YouTube. Subscribe, it's free, it's quick, it's easy. Hit the bell so you're alerted every time we are live, all right? So make that happen, Indisputable TYT on YouTube. You can also follow us on Twitter and IG, same thing, Indisputable TYT. Let me read some of these viewer comments. All right, they're coming in hot and heavy. Super chat, Atomic Dracula, can't wait for the good doctor to bring it with the remedy. I do try. Non-human humanist, remember Germany 30s fascists were elected into office. First they eliminated their enemies, after that they're not loyal enough friends. Yep, that's in the history books. Moondragon, it was probably his Ukrainian friend, Lev, got a referral from Rudy. Yeah, you see, that makes sense actually. Didn't even think of that. Tamara Law says, good evening guys. It's 1930 here in the UK. I really hope the doc pulls another stunt with a racist institution like the school the other day. Brilliant. All right. Fat guy named Tiny. That's beautiful. On a deeper level, why are traffic stops even a thing? Why are we sending armed psychos to stop people for civil infractions? And there are movements across America. Many citizens are saying we need to stop with this whole traffic stop stuff in the first place. All right, we got a lot. Anti-Fae, ACAB, throw them all in the trash immediately. Let's go to Twitter. Magnetized mushroom. And remember, you can hashtag Indisputable TYT. I wish Karen Wood this week is iconic of what's going wrong with right-wing views that put people into partisan thinking, hashtag foxholes. Really interesting. Ladies and gentlemen, Tucker Carlson believes that black people have smaller brains than white people. That's what he believes. Now, let me tell you where I base my conclusion from. The fact that he brought on a person who believes that and did not challenge the ideology once it was spewed. He had no rebuttal whatsoever. So here's how it goes. There's this guy, his name is Murray. He is considered to be an influential social scientist. He uses racism basically as a context. So this guy says, well, you see, black people have lower IQs than white people. And because of that, that's the reason why white people do better at corporate America or in workplaces, or they get hired more. Whatever the disparity is where whites win and blacks do not, he says, oh, it's just all connected to the fact whites are just smarter than black folks, okay? This was entertained on Tucker Carlson's show. And Tucker Carlson did not provide any rebuttal to it. So let me do that for him on this show. Number one, scientists have debunked the IQ myth. There's a really great article in Science Daily that was done years ago that actually predates this show from Tucker Carlson. It shows that IQ is not actually a determinant for your intellect. As a matter of fact, it's extremely misleading to think that a test created by a white male dominated biased social order could somehow tell everyone else how smart they are is really ridiculous. You have a range of tests, a range of cognitive tests, and a range of cognitive, social, and relational learning abilities. As a college professor, I understand some of these learning traits. My second doctorate degree, I had to get into it extensively to understand how people learn and why people learn differently. It's not about cognitive ability, it's about connecting with individuals based on how they are able to best learn. That's what it's truly about. Well, this person went on Tucker's show and here's what he said.
Essentially, you have registered nurses. And we have data on fairly large numbers of registered nurses, black and white. And the difference in mean IQ between the two of those is a dozen IQ points, which is a lot. It means you have a whole lot of extremely able black nurses. You have some incompetent white nurses, but it does mean you have a difference in job performance. And that's eventually going to be reflected in income as well. It's going to be reflected in the nature of their careers and the nature of how they end up. These are all differences which are driven not by irrational racism. They are driven by day-to-day realities of job performance and the responses of supervisors to job performances and the demands of the market. I'm not saying all of it, by the way. In all of this,
Now, if this sounds familiar, let me remind you who popularized this doctrine. It was the KKK, the Ku Klux Klans. They popularized this doctrine that basically taught that people of color are inferior intellectually. They also taught that women are intellectually inferior to white men. And by the way, Murray teaches the exact same thing. Southern Poverty Law Center said, according to Murray, disadvantaged groups are disadvantaged because on average, they cannot compete with white men who are intellectually, psychologically, and morally superior. Now, you would imagine that Tucker Carlson, even though he's a right-wing extremist, he would have some level of comeback. Here's Tucker Carlson's response to all of that garbage you just heard. Nothing. That was literally his response. He actually just looked, said nothing, and the guy kept talking, okay? John, what are your thoughts?
Well, Rashad, why should he say anything? The whole point of bringing Charles Murray on is to say all of that stuff so Tucker Carlson doesn't have to explicitly say it. He will, he'll occasionally pop in and agree with him, say, you're making obvious points. That's no offense, that's a very obvious point. You're so moderate, you're so reasonable. Why doesn't everyone get this? But he's not on camera actually saying all of those things. So that's the sort of trick that he's playing there. Oddly enough, in some of the shots, they would occasionally do a reaction shot of Tucker Carlson while Charles Murray was talking. Normally, Tucker has the blank face on his show. He looked angry during a lot of that. So one would think, oh, you don't agree with him. You don't like, even more angry than that sometimes. You don't agree with him. Good. This is why you bring someone on to disagree. Like you, Dr. Rashad, you debate people. You bring them on, not because you agree with them, but to air what they say and then respond to it. He didn't do any of that. He just brought on the white brains are better guy from the 90s to just say what he thinks, and that's it. And I'm honestly, again, I guess I'm the bad person because I'm kind of surprised that he can get away with that. That you can just air the race science guy and it's just your daytime programming. It's the most normal thing in the world for Fox now.
Yeah, and they have normalized individuals like this. Now remember, he's spewing a doctrine that was popularized by the KKK. It's the same thing. Now, does he say it better? Yeah, he has more articulation in how he says it. He uses a few more fancy words than let's say a redneck in South Georgia would use, but it is the same ideology. The ideology is 100% the same. And it teaches that intellectualism is defined by your skin color, by your race. And that's the reason why white men are the superior class in the United States of America. And it's really, it comes down to manipulation and bias and prejudice within systems. And it's important to understand the requirement of study. You have to study systems and how systems created bias. And by the way, here's how Tucker introduced this cat.
What I do know is that, I'm speculating here, but you seem like a very moderate person. You're often described as a radical. But whenever in those rare occasions I've read you write about yourself, your own views in your life rather than just pure social science, you seem very center right, as you said, not a radical at all. And yet you are treated as a radical.
Well, damn. Tucker Carlson has just said, if you believe that black people are intellectually inferior, that's not a radical idea. If you think they're inferior to white men. As a matter of fact, that's center right. John?
Yeah, I mean, look, America's awful. Our politics are awful. Maybe that does qualify as center right in this horrible country that's worst on race. It's bad on a lot of issues, really bad on racial issues. I don't know. I think he seemed so shocked. You seem you don't seem radical, you seem like a moderate. It's almost like Charles Murray is stealing his thing, being like a hardcore white supremacist and trying to present some sort of image that you're reasonable. Now Tucker Carlson does it by getting these glossy magazine write-ups that imply that he's someone that the left needs to like seriously intellectually grapple with. He's a different kind of Republican, which isn't true. Charles Murray does it by going on Tucker Carlson's show and having Tucker Carlson with his massive audience launder this horrendous mockery of a social scientist. So he's doing that work for him in real time. And so that's, I guess that's what Fox is. It's to make it, white people are supposed to feel better about their racism. Charles Murray, in describing one of his books from, I believe it was 1994, said, there are people who worry they might be closet racist. This book will teach them that they're not, that the things they think are okay. That's literally what he said about his book. And Tucker Carlson is continuing that mission today.
Yeah, and I gotta go to this video really quickly because I think Tucker Carlson immediately disproved the theory of Murray that white men are intellectually superior to anyone else. Here's what Tucker said about the insurrection.
Listen to this. Look at the document. The government calls those people unindicted co-conspirators. What does that mean? Well, it means that in potentially every single case, they were FBI operatives. Really? But wait, here's the interesting thing. Person 2 and person 3 were organizers of the riot. The government knows who they are, but the government has not charged them. Why is that? You know why. They were almost certainly working for the FBI.
I mean, damn. He literally just disproved the theory with that dumbass conclusion. Now let me help him out here, okay? You cannot be an unindicted co-conspirator if you work for the FBI, because the crime of conspiracy means a meeting of the minds to commit a criminal activity. And if there's no actual meeting of the mind, meaning if you are undercover or if you were playing a role as a criminal, then conspiracy cannot be allocated to your activity because there was no true meeting of the minds. In other words, the FBI, the Department of Justice, would never list an actual undercover agent as a co-conspirator because the conspiracy theory of the criminal activity does not apply.
Yeah,
but he's superior. He's superior to me though.
Yeah, apparently, just naturally. He unfortunately appears to have let all of that natural genetic talent go to waste. But is he dumb or is he lying? So he's a grown man who has no idea what cooperation with an investigation is, or why someone might do that to avoid being charged in a crime like this. So did he manage to get to this point in his life and he has no idea what that concept is? He's never watched TV, he's never followed the news. Or does he know what that is and is just lying to make up this theory about the FBI that he could throw out there? And if there's pushback, he'll abandon it. He'll just leave it out there for millions of his followers to spread on Facebook and Twitter. So is he dumb or is he lying?
Yeah, he's a little bit of both, brother. Yeah,
probably.
Yeah. All right, so let's do this. And I know my producers want me to move on to our next segment with our guy, but I wish a Karen would. Ladies and gentlemen, I have been highlighting Karens from across America. 100% of the time, basically, they run into individuals who are just very nice and not really trying to be as aggressive as they are. Well, today we will call her OG Karen. OG Karen ran into someone who had time today. She was about that life. And she decided to return some of that energy. This Karen called a black female the N-word and then decided to go to a police precinct because she saw black people looting somewhere unrelated to this woman. Here's the breakdown of OG Karen.
You wanna tell South Holland you calling me? Come on, let's file the hate crime. Here's the idiot who thought it was okay to call me. Here's her license plate. And she wanna drive to the police station. Let's see what we're gonna tell the cops today.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. No. Don't tell me you're sorry.
I'm sorry for the looting. I'm sorry for everything. What do you want from me?
Why would you call me? Yeah, because you want driving.
I'm so fed up with all this.
This is her. She lives in South Holland. This is the lady. And we got cameras today.
Please, I can't take this anymore. I'm trying to move out. I'm trying to move out.
No, she called me and she drove here to cry.
She passed me.
Yeah, so that's what we're dealing with.
On the left. She passed me on the left.
Okay.
And I can't.
That's what we're dealing with.
She called the woman the N-word. She then claimed to be a victim of something, and then started talking about she's trying to move out of that neighborhood and she's just tired of all of the looting. There's no evidence that looting took place in her neighborhood, and absolutely no evidence that this black female looted anything, period, whatsoever. John?
So she seemed to be saying that the woman passed her on the left, so she drove around her, thus making the woman a looter, I guess. But yeah, it's pretty amazing when you go to the cops to help you, and the woman that's following you says that you called someone the N-word, and you don't even deny it. You just move on to, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of all of it, which is largely what she said to the woman right outside of the police precinct. She was asked, why did you call me the N-word? And she said, because I'm sick of it. Like, apparently she had been able to restrain herself from using a racial slur so long as things are cool. If things are ever not cool, then I'm ready to throw it out. I can't wait to shout it at someone, and that's just terrible.
Yeah, and she assumed that, as with most people, like most black people, would just keep it moving. I'd be honest with you. And she assumed that she would be protected by that notion. And obviously the woman in question, she did not have anywhere to go for that moment. But to handle this right here. And I'm good with that. Let me tell you why. I believe it is our duty to embarrass racist people. Because right now there's this move, there's this push to make racism sexy, to make it acceptable, to make it part of a normalized tradition that can be promoted and that can be out front. Hell no, I know people will continue to be racist in America. But if you bring that stuff publicly, there should be a repercussion. I can't change your heart, but damn it, I can change if you are willing to say these things and do these things out loud and in public. And that's why I'm good with the embarrassment that comes from individuals who are socially destructive, known as racist.
Yeah. Yeah, and my last thought on this is there was a moment in the brief bit of it where she started to say, I'm sorry. And I thought, oh, so she was confronted. She's actually going to apologize. Like, she yelled at someone in a car, but now the person's in her face. She's forced to reckon with that woman's humanity. But no, she just went into, I'm sorry for all of the things that you people are doing and everything. And that's just, yeah, it's not helpful. Not helpful to feel like that's acceptable. She's being filmed, and that's what she said. She knows there's a chance it's gonna go viral. She doesn't even try to pretend like she feels bad about saying it at that point. There's some really hardcore entrenched racism, and the fight against that racism is going on as many of the political allies of the racists are denying that it's true, that it exists. You shouldn't be taught about any of this. So that woman is shouting the N-word at people as multiple states are trying to stop kids from even learning about racism in the first place.
Very well said, very well said. My brother, it has been a pleasure having you on Indisputable, man. And I tell people all the time, my first time on TYT was on your program, and I loved every minute of it. And brother, I want to tell you, thank you for giving me that opportunity to provide commentary on the damage report.
We've always been lucky to have you, and thank you so much for bringing me on Indisputable. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, my friend. We'll talk soon.
Okay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we got a lot more show on the other side. This is going to be interesting. We have a theologian, a dean of theology, studied at Oxford, has many advanced degrees, but he says some stuff that really makes me scratch my head, and I want to ask him about it, okay? We got more on the other side. It's Indisputable.
You're about to watch some behind the scenes footage of the Young Turks.
Ooh.
Now, these are partial videos. If you want to get all of them, you become a member, go to tyt.com/join, and you'll get all the behind the scenes of me, Anna, John, JR, a little bit reality show like. tyt.com/join and enjoy this.
You know what you're seeing behind me? Jersey, hold. Watch me flip this camera. However I flip it. Do I flip it like this? No, I just took a picture. I'm bitzing right now.
What?
Behind the scenes.
Oh, okay. For members? I don't have my face on.
She doesn't have her face on, folks. Oh, that's JR's ass right there.
You can't take 5 minutes off, can you?
No, I can't, Johnny Pie. I said it was live stream.
But I was lying. It's not a live stream. It's just for members.
Bitsy, this is my cat. You know what his name is? Kiki Cat.
Animals are innocent.
Control room and the insanity is obviously there.
Right now, as you can see, I'm directing or tech directing.
I'm so happy to be here.
This is what like a Labor Day beard looks like for Cenk. Man, you're a Young Turks viewer if you recognize me like this.
Such a big fan. Oh, thank you. You are the one person in my life I would love to meet.
What's going on, guys? This is a Bitsy or a BTS or behind the scenes with Hassan Piker, aka Woke Bay.
Oh, hi, I didn't see you there.
I have finished my show, The Damage Report, and now I get into a really awkward time of the day.
When I'm sitting, the control room is right there. So I can see Bart.
This is the Pittsburgh office, by the way. Referred to often as the boiler room.
You see how it's ripped? Is it super unprofessional to wear that at a business meeting? Or am I like cool rebel?
I just finished doing the power panel and I'm fired up.
What do you do for TYT?
Not a whole lot.
If you're frantically tweeting at us that something's broken, thank you, because I'm fixing it.
And thank you for being a TYT member.
Super last thing, because there's always got to be a super last thing. Oh, that was disastrous. This has been behind the scenes, behind the scenes.
All right, welcome to Dr. Rashad Richey, Indisputable. This is going to be quite interesting. I don't know if you can handle this much truth on any day of the week. The unrest inside of the black community and communities that support them. It's because these cops are not held accountable. You have a family calling 911, and that family is expecting help, not expecting their loved one to be killed by the very people they pay to protect and serve them. Did you ever notice a cop that you work with call any black person the N-word or target people because they were black? Nope. But we disagree that somehow police officers are not also subject to the same systemic biases and racism as any other level of law enforcement.
It sounds like for everybody's need who wants to crucify the cops without looking at it.
No, crucify bad cops, brother.
Bad
cops.
We don't need the government to step into our lives mandating that we should be wearing a mask.
You think you putting on a mask, Trey, is government intrusion, but you don't think the government telling a woman what she can or cannot do with her body it isn't government intrusion.
Where does life begin?
You want to go there? I can read it to you, bro.
You seem very well prepared. Certainly more.
Of course, why would I not be well prepared? They don't stop, I don't stop. Racism won't stop, I won't stop. Systemic bias won't stop, I won't stop. People still need health care, so I won't stop. People still need criminal justice systems reform throughout this country, so I won't stop, and you won't stop either.
Climate is changing fundamentally, extremely, and non-linearly. It's becoming worse now. It's not when the levees burst that is the problem. It's in the anticipation of that.
So I hope every human being is safe. And by human beings, I do not include multinational corporations, especially the ones that started climate change in the first place.
What we're currently doing right now in cutting emissions is clearly not enough. There will be ramifications to what Trump is doing. I don't want people to suffer, but I feel like there's gonna be a lot of suffering because we have an imbecile as our leader.
Welcome back to Indisputable. I got a lot of your comments. Let me read some of them. Sorry I can't get to every single one of them. Make sure you join me on the YouTube channel, Indisputable TYT, Indisputable TYT. Also, follow us, social media, same way, Indisputable TYT. Okay, super chat. May Money in the building. As a young black woman born and raised in Oakland, I really respect your intelligence and aspire to be as fiery and fearless as you, Dr. Richey. Thank you. Hi, John. Love the witch queen of Oakland Dragon. Beautiful. Zane, the magic puffer dragon. Doctor, I love Dragon Daddy. Hashtag spank me Dragon Daddy. I promise you, I promise our next guest has never heard that hashtag before, ever. Also, Costa Creocopolis. IQ tests were produced back in the 1800s to support eugenics, the idea of a super race. Surprisingly, the test proved Europeans were the super race. Grandma Sunshine Dragon says, bullpen, I love the bullpen. Thank you. Elizabeth V, oh no, DJ Lunchbox is gone. Love the John / Dr. Rashad Perry. I love it too. Dragon Slayer Dragon says, Dr. Richey gave himself that opportunity by being exceptionally capable. TYT did themselves and the progressive movement a service by recognizing him. And the feeling is very mutual. I'm very thankful to TYT. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, my next guest is actually no stranger in Christian evangelical circles, has a significant following. His name is Dr. Vodi Bakum, Dean of Theology, has an extensive educational background, including postgraduate study at the University of Oxford, England. Doc, thank you for being on the program. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate your time. You know, you're kind of a mixed bag to me. You may not be a mixed bag to yourself, but you are in a circle.
I'm a mixed bag to most people.
Yeah, you are. You're in a circle of Christian evangelicals, but you also said some things that were quite contrary to Donald Trump. You called him an immoral leader, which, as you know, many of your colleagues in the Christian evangelical faith, they kind of dismiss, not kind of, they did dismiss morality as a prerequisite to leadership as it relates to former President Donald Trump. But there are some things that I would like to discuss with you on the record. Let's start with the social justice movement. I believe that church should be a place that expresses and transforms policy because of its value system. What are your thoughts about the Black Lives Matter movement?
Wow, well, that's two very different things. The Black Lives Matter movement is very anti-church, it's very anti-Christian. It's a Marxist organization that was started explicitly as a Marxist organization that had openly anti-family and openly anti-Christian sentiments. Those sentiments had to be removed from their website because people found out about them. So if you're asking me about faith and Black Lives Matter, I would say that the two are mutually exclusive, especially from a Christian perspective.
Okay, let me put it to you this way, because I think what you're doing is connecting an organizational structure to the movement structure, and here's where I bring them back together. There's a movement to emphasize Black lives. And that doesn't mean those individuals are part of the organization Black Lives Matter. And there are some definite positives that Black Lives Matter. They've been able to work and negotiate with various governments around the country.
You mean in order to enrich themselves personally?
Well, let's go ahead and get into it, brother, since you posed the question. In Minneapolis, it was actually Black Lives Matter, the organization, who brought the attention to the murder of George Floyd.
Actually, not only the video that did that.
Well, sir, remember,
they didn't do that. The video did that. There was no need for them to do it because the video was out there.
Give me a moment, brother. If I was a guest on your show, sir, I would be respectful. We only have a certain amount of time. Not only did they bring in the organizers to help with the creation of protests and rallies and marches, they also negotiated with officials, including the mayor of Minneapolis. They're the ones who contacted Benjamin Crump directly. I'm friends with Benjamin Crump. They did something very similar in the city of Atlanta. They negotiated a new plan for policing in the city of Atlanta by meeting with Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms. They did something similar in Miami, LA, and also New York. That was the organization. Now, the organization, they typically would take a step back once the public gets involved, and you saw white women, white men, children, brown folks, black folks all marching in agreement that Black lives should matter. So let's talk about the social justice movement of Black Lives Matter. If Jesus was here, do you think he would say Black Lives Matter?
Well, if Jesus was here, he would say lives matter. I know, for example, if Jesus was here, he would say that the Black lives that are being obliterated in the womb matter. And as a Christian, I believe that lives matter from the moment of conception all the way to their moment of natural death. Okay. And so I'm absolutely committed to lives mattering, but I will not be held captive by an organization that has used that terminology in order to back people into a corner and cause them to live with this cognitive dissonance between the organization that again is antithetical to biblical Christianity, and the idea that people, regardless of who they are and where they come from, matter. I'm a Christian. I believe people are made in the image of God and have inherent dignity, worth, and value.
Let me go to a statement you made about Jesus would say all lives matter. Remember the parable of the sheep, brother?
Actually, I said Jesus would say lives matter.
Do you remember the parable of the sheep?
Listen, you corrected me earlier for interrupting you. I'm gonna correct you now for misquoting me. I said brother, Jesus said lives.
Okay, that's fine. That's a distinction that doesn't make a difference. My question to you was, would he say Black Lives Matter? And you did not agree that he would say Black Lives Matter. That was the genesis of my question. So my second question to you is, do you remember the parable of the sheep?
Yes.
You're a theologian.
Yes.
In that parable, Jesus talks about walking 100 sheep, and then one goes astray. The parable goes that the 99 are stopped, and attention or emphasis is placed only on the one. While we know through just a sense of humanity that all of the sheep technically matter, it's the sheep that has been put in this ditch that the shepherd stops everything, pauses everything to pay attention to that one. You see, I believe Jesus would have said Black Lives Matter, because if you go to a community, brother, and you're looking at the deprivation in that community, there's an emphasis that needs to be placed on making sure we have economic equity, making sure that we have social access, making sure that we have reforms in policing and criminal justice, because those are the biases that we've been living under. So that would be the sheep in the ditch, brother, and the shepherd would pay attention to that one, as the parable says when Jesus spoke it. You don't agree with that?
Not at all, because you completely misused that text. The parable is one of 3 parables that were told together: the lost sheep, the lost coin, and the lost son. The emphasis there is on the fact that the Pharisees did not celebrate when individuals came to faith in Christ. So you absolutely obliterated the meaning of that text. The other thing is this. I don't believe that black
wait a minute, you said I obliterated. Wait a minute, Doc. You said I obliterated the meaning of the text.
So you get to finish, but I don't?
Well, I don't have unlimited time with you, brother, and I can't let you just blow me all the time. So you made an accusation.
And
you made an accusation.
You made one, you wouldn't let me get in. I'm saying you misused the text, and you won't let me, your guest.
Well, go ahead and tell me how I misused the text.
After you finished.
Go ahead and tell me. You gotta be quick though, brother. How did I misuse the text?
You misused the text because you allegorized the text in order to pour your meaning into it, when Jesus very clearly used that text in order to say something very specific. You don't get to change what he meant by that.
What was the specifics of the text?
The specifics of the text were to rebuke the Pharisees because they were not celebrating when people came to faith in Christ. It didn't have anything to do with economic equity. The economic equity.
Let me give you my understanding of the text.
The talents makes it clear that Jesus was not about economic equity.
Brother, listen to me, brother. Allow me. Okay, I got you. I understand. You noted your rebuttal on the record.
Taking the one talent.
Got you, Doc. I got 3 minutes with you, brother. So here's my understanding of the text. The text not only was talking about those who are Pharisees, which will be the religious government structure of that time, but the text was also about the judgment that individuals had toward people or toward those who were coming into a new understanding of who God was or who God is to them. Because the Pharisees were judgmental to the believer. Because I don't have unlimited time, let me ask you about the social movement Black Lives Matter again. Do you think the social movement of Black Lives Matter is a bad thing, or do you think it's a good thing?
No, I think it's a bad thing. I think
Tell me why.
Number one, I think it's dividing people. Let me go back to what you said earlier.
But people are already divided, brother.
Can I? Again, are we going to be equitable since you're about equity? Can we be equitable in the way that we communicate with one another?
I got 1 minute, man. Go ahead, Doc.
So what I'm saying is, by the way, I love this.
Yeah, it's good.
What I'm saying is that if you go to those cities that you mentioned, yes, BLM got involved in Minneapolis and Atlanta, and the crime rate skyrocketed specifically because of the things that they got involved in.
All right, that's
you have what's called this Ferguson effect. It's absolutely true. Anybody can go and look at this at the crime records before BLM got involved and after.
Okay, all right, I got to come to a close. My producer's giving me the rap sign. But I do want you to remember that in places like Baltimore, where Black Lives Matter had a strong presence as well, crime has actually decreased by double digits. Arrests have decreased by 39%. Incarceration has decreased by 28%. Murder and violent crimes has decreased by 12%. You can go and get those stats. 2 university studies did that. That was based on a coordinated effort between Marilyn Mosby and a reimagined prosecutorial format. And they've been able to decrease crime. Now you talk about the rise in crime. Yes, some of these cities have seen a rise in crime, but you want to blame Black Lives Matter for the rise in crime when you are ignoring the fact that police officers called in with the blue flu, that cops refused to respond to calls, that executives and law enforcement and executives as politicians
why should that matter? Because Black Lives Matter wants to defund the police.
Unwilling to actually police.
Black Lives Matter wants to defund the police, so they got
want
exactly
to
what they're looking
reprioritize
for.
the budget.
No, sir.
Let me give you an idea.
Defund
Let me give you an idea. Let me give you an idea to consider. And they should defund it.
It's a radical Marxist idea. But think about okay, I got to wrap, but think about what you're saying. Places like Ithaca, New York, 51% of the 911 calls did not even require a cop, they required a social worker. So Ithaca, New York decided to respond to their community and start hiring mental health social workers to respond to 911 calls because that is what the community said we actually need. But before I let you go, brother, you go around the entire world, literally the whole planet, and you preach what you call to be truth. Do you tell the white evangelicals you preach to they need to get rid of that picture of white Jesus? I tell them they need to get rid of pictures of Jesus, period, because it's a violation of the second commandment.
When I think Jesus is okay.
A picture of Jesus is a violation of the second commandment. So I don't want to see any pictures of Jesus because it's a violation of the second commandment. It's a graven image.
Tell them to get rid of their white Jesus.
It's a graven image. They need to get rid of it. They shouldn't be pictures of Jesus.
Doc, I got to bring you back on when we have more time. But I appreciate you, man. You're a good sport, brother. All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate your time on Indisputable. All right, we got more on the other side. Indisputable.
We are onto something that is going to be amazing, but what we need is your help.
The number one problem is there's too much power in too few hands.
Every single problem that we have can be traced back to dark money.
They take large donors, they serve large donors.
So these handful of gatekeepers try to dictate everything.
Like all of you already know, they don't work for you, they work for their donors. So fire them and hire people who will only work for you that say no corporate backed money.
We are going to change the way we elect candidates in this country.
Uncorrupted Democrats. We're gonna fight for the issues and win on policy.
This is incredibly personal. We need free healthcare for everyone.
We're fighting for $15 minimum wage, single payer healthcare, debt-free college, and we are gonna get money out of politics once and for all.
I've taken a public pledge not to accept any corporate money.
Because the last thing we're gonna do is go into another presidential election and run a corporatist against a populist candidate.
At some point, the buck needs to stop, and it's gonna stop with us. It's gonna stop with Justice Democrats.
So who are we?
People who do not take corporate PAC money.
We're relying on small donors.
99.9% of our contributions came from people.
You're a Just Democrat, so you don't take any corporate PAC money.
I'm not influenced by money.
As a Justice Democrat, I made that pledge.
Not a betting.
Absolutely not.
I will go to Congress unbossed and unbought.
We try to create a government which works for all of us.
That is what America's about, and that's what a representative democracy should be about.
We are just getting warmed up here.
Vote for uncorrupted Democrats. The fight starts now, it starts today, and it starts with you.
I've been honest with him. Like, yeah, I was upset with you and I shouldn't have done it. But instead I was like, I'm just trying to protect my engagement ring.
Did you know that more than 20% of the world's oxygen comes from the Amazon? Why? Because of trees. I know what you're thinking. Of course! So what do we want to do? We want to plant more trees so we can save the climate. It's quite literal. So that's what leads to our new partner, Plant Your Change. Love it. It's so easy. What they do is you take the credit or debit cards you already have and you plug it into the system. And if you so choose, you get to round up every purchase to the nearest dollar and they plant a tree for you, okay? Now you could also choose if you wanna do it on only certain kinds of purchases or only so often, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. But literally every cent makes a difference here. It's Plant Your Change. And if you wanna know more information, just go to tyt.com/trees.
Let's go save the planet together.
Now, top. No. No.
Today, a terrible day for the internet, a terrible day for America. The internet as we know it is not going to exist anymore.
A real dark day for information, and yet another way that they're bleeding out the democracy.
We're now going to have these gatekeepers of information deciding what we can and can't see, and that's what scares me the most.
Whether you're conservative or progressive or anywhere in the middle, this is the one thing we should all agree to. Protect the internet, because the establishment is coming for it. Don't let them destroy the internet.
Let's try again.
Okay, welcome back, Indisputable. We got some viewer comments. Let's get to it. TYT member, Melissa the Defender Dragon. Jesus didn't say we should wash all people's feet, only the poor. Good point. Tell me what to put. Says, if BLM is anti-Christian to this guy, isn't that an indictment on his version of Christianity? If his version can't admit that we need BLM, then it's toxic. PhD for 5 says, this man is being willfully obtuse. Francois, yes, all lives matter, but only black people were enslaved in the United States and have had their freedoms systematically encroached upon. And that was the point I was making, correct. Kedge Dragon says, emergency response numbers should be spread out. 911 conflates crime, fire, trauma, social disturbance. We need 911, 912, 913, 914, or some such number system. That's actually a really, really good idea. Because even with the 911 calls where a person says, hey, this is not a criminal matter, sometimes the dispatch won't even relay that information. And then all hell breaks loose when a cop comes with a gun and there's a person with a mental health disturbance. That's a really great idea. All right, don't forget, make sure you join us on the Indisputable TYT YouTube page, Indisputable TYT. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the bullpen. Man, this is going to be interesting. I have a guy I've actually known for a very long time, and he's always said very, very extreme and conservative things. Well, he now has one of the top conservative shows in the city of Atlanta, working for WSB. You can check out his long and extensive bio. But I have on the program conservative talk radio personality, host Word on the Street, Shelley Winter. Shelley, good day.
Good day, my brother. Good day. I'm so proud of you, my man. I love you.
I love you back, man. And listen, we may get into an argument today. I hope we don't. I hope we're able to have.
Oh, we will. We will.
I know, man.
It's okay. It's okay.
We go back. You've been on my radio show. I've had to kick you out of my radio show because I was damn near about to hit you. But I'm glad you're on the show today. Let me bring your attention to something, because I have to start with an almost point of agreement with you. Some months back, you actually had some words about Donald Trump, how he came after Governor Kemp. You did not like how Donald Trump came after the Republican governor of Georgia. And you were known to be a Trump guy. You were known to be generally supportive of Donald Trump. And I'm sure many people in the Trumpite cult, they came against you. I'm just sure of that. But you said that, and then you did something even more extreme, in my opinion, and was very public about it. During the very contentious US Senate election in Georgia, where everyone was biting their nails, trying to figure out, would Ossoff win? Would Warnock win? Would Loeffler win? Or would Perdue win? you as a conservative commentator and a radio guy, you came out and said that you are actually voting for Dr. Raphael Warnock for the US Senate and voting for John Ossoff for the US Senate. I want you to revisit that for this conversation and tell us why, as a conservative, Trump-supporting, Republican-talking individual, you decided to vote for and publicly announce you were supporting 2 Democrats for the US Senate.
Well, first to the, thanks for having me, but first to the Kemp Trump battle, if you will. I live in Georgia. I'm more concerned with who my governor is than a guy who had just lost the presidency. So what Trump was saying about Kemp really bothered me because you're already out of the White House, or you're going to be out of the White House. And I didn't need you criticizing a governor who still had a race coming up, which is gonna be a bloodbath here in Georgia. I mean, a knife fight here in Georgia between him and Stacey Abrams. So I didn't need that war, one. Number two, again, I'm a Brian Kemp. I'm loyal to Brian Kemp. He's always told me what he's gonna do. He's done it. Everything he said he was going to run on, what he ran on, he accomplished, or he tried to accomplish. But I live in Georgia. I'm more concerned with who my governor is than who a candidate for president who was running for re-election, who at that time had just lost. Then I don't really care, and I don't need you stepping into a Georgia race only because your feelings are hurt because the governor didn't do what you thought he should do. And I've been telling Republicans that, who like Vernon Jones of all people, over Brian Kemp, because the governor then shut down the election and changed the outcome, which is patently absurd that conservatives who stand on constitutional principles want a governor to break the Constitution and do something he's not constitutionally able to do. So that's the first thing.
Okay, let me stop you there. You have just made more sense in roughly 3 minutes than your whole damn party has made in about 3 years. You have to understand.
I'm trying to bring. No, we've made a lot of sense in 3 or 4 years. We have. I'm not gonna take that shot. I'm not gonna let you shoot the whole party down. We have made a lot of sense.
Man, it's not the Republican Party, brother. It is Trump's party. But go ahead. I'll let you talk about the Senate.
It absolutely is. 75 million votes. It ought to be his party. It definitely is his party. That's without question. But to the point of voting for Warnock and Ossoff, I was just mad. I had said early in the summer during that general election, or a jungle primary, if you will, that don't go after first Warnock's religion or his preaching, not his religion, his preaching. I was totally against that. I said, don't do it, and they did it anyway. And I thought it was, my statement in that race was, I knew Warnock would only be there until next year, so I knew it wasn't a 6-year term. So I could tie in my mind, I could tie the Senate up for 2 years and then take back that seat in 2022. Well, hopefully, prayerfully, but that's the plan. But my message was to the Republican Party is, you can't continue to just throw things out here to move the base. Bring us policy. What are you going to do? I go out every day and I tell African Americans, vote Republican, and here's why. Now you're just doing the exact same thing the Democrats do. Is the Democrats say, don't vote for them, they're Republican. They're racist. And the Republicans say, don't vote for the other side because they're radical leftist socialists. Well, that doesn't help my day to day. I need things that help my day to day. You're gonna tell me you're gonna cut spending? Actually cut spending. You want tax cuts? Actually cut taxes. These are the things that I want the Republicans to do, because I think we can start moving, particularly African Americans and Hispanics, over to our side if we push policy over just name calling and dog whistles with radical socialism.
So that's why you voted for Warnock. Why did you vote for Ossoff?
I like Ossoff. He came on my show. I'll be honest right here. This is completely self-serving, and voting for the record, voting is completely self-serving. I don't vote for a community. I don't vote for a group of people. I vote for Shelley. Shelley was on the radio. Ossoff came on every time we invited him. Perdue never even answered us back. I wasn't going to reward that. My bread and butter, the way I put food on my table, is by providing content. So when I call a guy to help me provide content and he responds every time to come on, and the guy that I'm supposed to vote for just totally ignores me, I'm gonna make you pay.
All right, so let me say this. First of all, I'm actually glad you came out and said, hey, I'm voting for Warnock and I'm voting for Ossoff, okay? It made a lot of news in the state, and you did provide some commentary and also an interview about why you did that. I disagree with your why. I completely disagree with your why. And I understand your why is authentic to you. But when I vote, I do actually vote for a community. And sometimes I will vote for a community that may not be the best for perhaps an industry that I'm a part of, or a connection that I have financially. That's fine, I'm okay with that. I'm willing to vote for the community that means more to me than something that I may have been connected to or an industry that I'm a part of. I understand the matrix of politics can get complicated sometimes. But let's be very clear what they did to you, brother. Let's be very clear, okay? You have one of the top political conservative shows in the state of Georgia. You have Republicans, conservatives, Trumpites who listen to your program on a regular basis, okay? There was a lot of dissension inside of the Republican Party about voting, period. There were the myths about the voting machines were from China. There's all kind of crazy stuff, right? You were in a place to say, listen, here's the reality and here's why you should or should not vote. They ignored you. I heard an interview you did. You said, okay, well, Loeffler kind of played with you a little bit, but never got on the show. Purdue just ignored you. Don't you think it's problematic because they went on other conservative talk shows? You happen to be the black guy. And you have a lot more listeners than a whole lot of the white conservative talkers in the city. Don't you think that's indicative not of them only, but of a culture inside of the Republican Party? And hold on,
not at all. Not at all. No, I know where you're going. No, not at all.
I'm not finished, brother. No, you're gonna let it happen today. Let me tell you the reason they didn't come on your show.
I'm answering no.
Okay, let me tell you the reason they didn't come on your show, brother.
All right.
They didn't come on your show because you put it out there that you were gonna talk to them about what they would do for black Americans or black Georgians. You put that out there. That's why they didn't come on your program. Now tell me I'm lying.
I'll tell you, yes, that's not true. Purdue didn't do any radio. Purdue did one interview on radio, I think in late October. Other than that, Purdue did no media. So in that case, I'm lumped in with everybody else. Kelly Loeffler did, I think, a show here on WSB towards mid-October, and that was it. Both of them did not do a lot of media, which was a mistake on their part. But no, I'm not gonna put it at that point that that's the reason, not at all. The reason they didn't do it is the same reason they didn't go on Martha Zala's show in North Georgia, which is right there in central Gainesville. The reason why they didn't do those shows either. So there's a bunch of shows that they didn't do. They didn't do John Frederick's show. Let me bring your attention
to something. All right, brother, I got receipts.
Okay, good.
Let me bring your attention to an interview you did with a man named Mr. Maynard Eaton that we know very well. On that show, and brother, I got the clip.
No, I know you. I did. No, hold on. Let's be clear. I did put that out there as the reason why I wanted them to come on. I'm answering your question to say that's not the reason they didn't come on. That reason that I wanted them to talk about black people is not the reason they didn't come on. No, not at all. Because if it were that reason, I would have seen them all over media during that election and also during the runoff. And I didn't see that happening.
Do you think, and that is interesting to me, because I truly believe they did not come on your show.
Of course you
because you said I'm going to talk about a black agenda, and they just, I mean, they weren't trying to talk about a black agenda.
They were at the black agenda launch. They were at the Lift Every Voice.
Man, that's not.
Well, I'm saying they were there.
Come on, man. You call that damn Trump rally, Black People for Trump, whatever y'all called it. You call that a black agenda tour?
Well, that's where he announced it, is what I'm saying. That's where he announced.
Wasn't it called like the Platinum Plan or something like that?
It was called the Platinum Plan, but I'm saying that I mixed them up. But the point is that that's where they were there. So there's no reason.
Come on, Shelby, you're smarter than that. Donald Trump.
If I felt that way, I've been honest with you the whole time.
I know, but you still, to me, brother, to me, you are smarter than that. But let me ask you this. Let me ask you this.
And if that is the reason,
the Platinum Plan. Let's go to the Platinum Plan.
Oh, that's in the past. Trump lost.
No, we're gonna talk about it. Listen, brother, we're talking about it. The Platinum Plan was a rule, right? Don't you get what the Platinum Plan was about? You understand what that was about, right?
Absolutely. I got Juneteenth as a holiday, but I'm still crying for reparations. You want to talk about being stooped? Yeah. Really? You really want to talk about being duped, dog? I mean, I got a federal holiday of a date that affected one state in honesty, and they're calling it a national.
Well,
hold on.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. So,
right.
Shelly, I've done this whole commentary.
Yeah, and I'm still waiting for reparations.
That's right. So, brother, listen to me. Listen, Shelly. Listen. So I mean, come on. Listen, on this show,
we go back to the guy in law, so we can talk about the guy that's there.
Shelly, on this program, I have already criticized the whole notion of Juneteenth as a holiday. And I'll say very clearly, I don't do what I do every day to send politicians to DC to give me a holiday. Now, it's not a bad thing to have a federal holiday. It is a bad thing if you think that's a win or pushes a policy agenda, because it does not. All right. But remember, the same Republicans that gave you that Juneteenth are the same Republicans that are anti-HR 1, anti the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, anti the George Floyd Policing and Accountability Act. So don't tell me that the Juneteenth holiday is a win.
No, I'm not saying it's a win or a loss. I'm just saying don't go back to 2020 of November 2020 and an outreach to Black Americans and say that was the biggest joke, and then tell me now when 95% of Black Americans voted for Joe Biden, that you control the House. And what you got out of it in the first 70 days is Juneteenth as a holiday. I don't even remember Juneteenth being a push for a holiday. Now I know Bob Johnson.
It was a push.
I'm talking about a push. I'm not talking about the push by
not a national push,
but
it was
right.
proposed.
I'm talking about
it was submitted.
Yeah, it was proposed.
There was a push.
Absolutely.
Let me go back to another.
You understand what I mean? I didn't see it on Black Twitter.
Man, come on, man. You know I do. Let me go back to a policy issue, because I've heard you talk about the economy of Black people, the ecosystem of our financial reality, right? If that's really your thing, if the economy of Black folks is really your thing as a Republican, I want to read some stats to you about the economy of Black folks. And I want you to respond to these stats.
Right.
Under Democratic presidents, Black families' incomes grew on an average of $900 a year, but only grew by $142 under Republican presidents. Black unemployment fell by a net of 8% across 26 years of Democratic leadership, but it actually went up a net percentage of 13.7 during the same amount of time as Republican presidencies, or during Republican presidencies. Across the years, Democratic leadership, Black poverty declined by 23.6 percentage points, but grew by 3 percentage points when Republicans held the White House. Now, you can get all of that information from the United States Census Bureau.
Right. So can I answer you, Rob? Can I answer you?
Well,
I know where you're going.
Let me pose the question. If economy is your #1 driving political force, is it not time for people like you to consider supporting at least the policies that equate to a more equitable outcome for Black folks, rather than the policies that do not?
Absolutely not. And the fallacy in what you said is, you see where you're a very brilliant man, and I love you to death. You see how you mix up the term Republican president, and then every now and then you threw in Republican leadership?
No, sir.
Presidents don't.
No. I do not want you to.
That.
No, brother, listen to me.
I'm saying. I want to be clear. I'm answering your question.
But I want to make sure everyone understands, when I say Republican leadership, I am still referring to Republican presidencies. I only changed the terminology so that I would not sound redundant. Go ahead.
Okay, no problem. So let me answer your question and not sound redundant. The fact of the matter is, presidents don't write policy. So what you have to do is go back and look at what you're listen to me. It's true. I mean, I have the Constitution.
Man, they do push policy, brother. They do.
No, they push policy. I said they don't write policy. You tried it again. I didn't say push.
They get voted on based on a policy agenda.
Come on, Doug. You're gonna ask me to answer your question?
Go ahead.
What you have to do is go back and look at your census numbers and see what the House, who ran the House when those numbers changed. And what you will find when you do your research, as your fans so happily tell you do all the time, you will find that under Republican leadership of the House and Senate, African Americans do better economically. under Republican leadership of House and Senate, because that is where the money is spent and that's where the policies are written. Okay. All the president does is say, I want to do this. Picking out a Republican
that's not all the president does.
That's
Come on, Shelly.
Okay.
Let me go ahead and read some other. Let me read some additional stats.
He doesn't spend a dime, nor does he write laws. You know that.
Thank you for your rebuttal.
It's a silly argument to say under Republican.
Well, let me go ahead and give you the rest of the argument.
Right.
Let me go ahead and give you the rest of the argument.
Black people do well. Black people do well when their schools work.
Let me give you the rest of the argument, sir. You don't have to try to bloviate your way out of this truth that you're about to get.
I'm telling you when black.
This is what happens when somebody's scared of the rebuttal. You ready?
There's no. This is what happens. How do black people do well? Right.
Number one, Shelly, do you mind citing the source of your information as it relates to the House and the Senate?
I didn't give you that. I said go back and do your research.
Well, what did you do your research?
I listen to me. Don't do a Mark Lamont Hill. This is what y'all do.
No, but wait a minute, brother. Where did you do your research? I gave you the source of mine.
You started your argument by saying under Republican presidents, X, Y, and Z happens negatively to African Americans.
Correct.
Under
that's
Democrat president, that's what you said. I'm merely saying back to you that presidents, one, don't spend money, two, don't write policy and sign laws.
I mean, they sign laws, they don't write laws.
That's what you're going to do.
You just made.
I didn't make a proclamation. I'm telling you a constitutional fact, and you know it. What you're trying to do now,
we're talking
that the president doesn't write laws.
Shelley, does it hurt when you do that? Shelley, does it hurt?
No, I'm saying does a president write laws? No, they don't.
Does it hurt
when money? No, they don't. And then you can sidebar this all you want.
All right, Shelley, let me go and read you some facts because I know it has to hurt, brother, when you try to pull facts out your ass like that. But here's the reality. Here's the reality, Shelley.
They gotta go 3 minutes. They gotta do a show in it.
Okay, real quick. Here's the reality. Number one, you're incorrect about the House and Senate proclamation as it relates to black and brown people in the United States. 100% of all policies that you're talking about has to be signed by the president of the United States.
Not written. I didn't say that. Sir? I didn't say that. I said written.
Okay, sir. Just allow me to finish the rebuttal. And here are the policies that are connected to the more equitable outcomes for black people in the United States of America. Number one, increase of funding by 588% to higher education. Increase of funding by 314% as it relates to job training skills. Increase of funding.
You got to get the higher education. You got to get the higher education.
Hold on, sir.
When you got reading scores, you got low reading scores, you got math
of funding by 118% as it relates to reentry programs.
Get to college.
All right, those
are the facts, right? So all black people are coming out of jail for reentry.
No, I just named to you higher education, job training skills, and reentry. You only focused on the reentry because you feel that's your only win, brother. Come on, man. The party is higher education.
I focused on higher education first. I said you got to get there first. You got to get there, so you got to come out of good schools. What about the failing schools?
Let's go to that. You got a minute left.
Let's make the argument this,
Shelley. The 8 states that have the worst, sir, the 8 states that have the worst academically performing K through 12 education
are Republican-run states. Yeah, Republican-run states, absolutely. Go ahead.
That's great, brother.
And now let's flip it and say the 5 top states in highest crime were Democrat-run states. So now what do we do?
Yeah, here's what we do. Number one, you attack it at the root.
Vote Democrat. No, we vote Democrat.
I'm asking you a question. Is policy, Shelley. The root has to be policy.
I can stop crime by voting
Democrat. Name a policy. Just name a policy that has transformed the social and economic outcomes.
School choice. I just named it.
Give me your percentage of school choice and how it changed the outcome.
Well, it gives parents who want their kids to learn an option without having to go to the public school that they're forced to go to. So by giving them an option, they have now better choices to make for their children. Let me answer the question.
Yeah, brother. I'm going to absolutely provide another follow-up question to you. Come on, Shelley.
I said school choice. That's my answer.
Okay. What percentage of jurisdictions are able to?
I have no idea, Scott.
You don't know. All right. I appreciate
you. You asked me for a policy, and I said school choice.
Let me tell you a massive policy. A massive policy would be what President Obama did by making sure that K through 12 education had more funding. That is a good dynamic policy.
I have no problems with that.
Local educators.
I have no problems with that.
Well, great. I'm glad. So
Governor
you need
Kemp
to talk
just
to your
gave a raise
Republican
to
colleagues
teachers.
and tell
Governor
them
Kemp,
to stop defunding K through 12 education.
That's not happening.
That's what
here
you should do.
That's not happening here in Georgia. It hasn't happened over the 4 last legislative sessions. So let's keep going.
It happened with Donald Trump by taking away money from the federal TRIO program, and he took money away from the from Upward Bound, which was the catalyst
and gave it to other more viable programs.
So you're okay with defunding money from children? Okay, brother.
I'm okay with defunding money. I'm okay with moving money from programs that don't work.
Oh, that was moving money. It's not defunding.
That's what I just said.
When y'all do it to children. It's just defunding when you do it to the police.
I just said he moved it to programs that worked.
Come on, man. I appreciate you, man. I'm getting the rap.
I gotta go. Mark Aron's getting ready to come on WSB Radio 95.5. I'll be on tonight at 9
about Mark Aron. You tell him I said that too.
All right, peace.
Peace, man. This man gonna plug another guy on my show. Come on, this guy's ridiculous. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let me say this to everyone. Remember these things. Take care of yourself, take care of each other, and take care of the planet. And remember, the truth is always indisputable.